The paper that looks kind of like this. It walks through some of that detail. Mr. Coleman, I hope that you were able to get that, especially since it was your question.
Yes, I did. I'm reviewing it on my email as we speak. So.
Okay. All right, Cindy's, we're having a little bit of IT issues right here right now. She's trying to pull all this up on the screens here, but we seem to be having a little challenge. If there's dead air, that's what it is, or in the public. So we're just trying to work through that for just a minute.
No problem.
Okay, I've got it on the page where it looks at the changes you made at the last meeting. And you'll see that the net effect of all that, going to the bottom of the expenditure page. It's been so long since I've used the laptop. I'm having trouble finding the keys. Is that we're expenditures exceed revenues by $1,355, but we were expecting some additional information from you regarding the rail service. And did you find out whether we need to leave that $62.50 in there?
So, you know, it's as clear as mud right now. So what ended up happening was the Norfolk and Southern Corporation came to negotiations in a way that only the railroads can. And basically said, this is what we'll be negotiating. And that negotiation was for a line that does not run by the new train station in Christiansburg. So there are a couple of things that are close to that spot that come out of the line that runs along the New River and out of Giles County. That's the line Norfolk Southern would like to negotiate. So right now it's really up in the air. The understanding from the state, though, was that they want this New River Rail Public Service Authority instituted. They want it to be formed. Now, if that gets formed, we'll need some money to join. I don't know if $67.50 is a good number. You know, I would suggest maybe we reduce to $5,000.
Now, 500 of the amount in there of the $67.50s are membership fee for the card. So you're saying 5,500?
Maybe 55. Yeah, let's leave the 5 and then yeah.
Okay.
And if we go to doing our full appropriations instead of doing it quarterly,
Correct.
maybe we do this like we did the Shell building. We withhold that
Correct, until we know.
until they put in a request for funds. Then we're going to do the. I mean, I'm not.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's no sense in giving somebody. We don't even have a place to give it to.
Well,
there's no authority.
And see what finally comes out of it, because if we're talking about moving it to that other line,
it won't be that far away though. If there's a number
there's
of
a Y in that line down there that they're still. It sounds like they're far apart, but they're not.
They're not. I know you know. And there's a couple of
spots.
There's a couple of spots that at one point in time years ago caused some problems for another issue with another corporation, but that corporation isn't doing as much in that spot anymore. So I don't know. There's just a number of different
players,
different possibilities that could come of this all. So I think we should leave some as a placeholder, and then we'll go from there. And, I mean, it may be 3 months, and a public service authority is gonna be there. It may be another year. I mean, I would hate to see that, but there was definitely a feeling amongst many that it's hard to put a public service authority together when we really don't know where everything's gonna be before you put the cart before the horse. Is I think
Well, we can leave it in the budget and then, and remember, that's one of those things that we don't want to add to the appropriations when we approve appropriations. And then we can do the appropriation as the bill comes in or once things is finalized.
you're right with that? So
Well, what we do with all community service programs is we, if you funded it, appropriated it completely, even when we appropriate it completely, we send out letters saying, this is what you've been approved for, but we will not pay you until you request
the money.
the money. And what we could do with them is say, we could appropriate the entire thing and say, we will not be funding you until.
Details or finalized or some kind of formal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
I would hate to do an appropriation for everything except one line, just because of the paperwork involved.
Oh, I got you.
Well,
I
I
mean, we
understand,
could not.
but I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
We can't do this, I don't care what the dollar amount is. We don't want an organization sending a letter and getting the whole amount and they haven't even.
No.
So how do we protect the county and the citizens? I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And like I said, all the others, they have to request the money before we give it to them, even after it's appropriated. We never just automatically send it out.
So I'm trying to remember, where did this, other than the 500, where did the 6250
It was
come
a
from?
handwritten note that Terry has made for the file, based on the meeting she had gone to, and just hearing them talking about possible amounts.
Yeah, in terms of a formula and such.
Yeah. And she said at the time, this was preliminary, I just wanted to keep this in mind.
Yeah, a line. Yeah, I think we could, I think at this point, since we are so tight on things and we have no direction whatsoever at this juncture, I think if we just reduce it to,
And if things kick open and get going full steam, we may have to add some to it.
We may.
anyway.
we may, but at least we, that's one place. And we might be able to readjust too, but, yeah, I would say we could go with the 5,500. I suggest we do that.
I'm okay with that.
Justin?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just so you heard, well, no, you didn't hear the discussion, that's right. Yeah,
No.
it was just, and I wanted to ask some more questions, but I could tell that nobody really wanted, I think it really came as a blow. That was my feeling. But, the railroad's the railroad. There's really not much else you can say about the railroad, but it's the railroad.
They always seem to get what they want eventually, one way or the other. It might not be at the beginning, but eventually it ends up.
Yeah. And I understand their desire to want to have things safe and,
Well, that brings us down to only being $105 over.
Well, that's pretty good.
Were there any?
You want to give you a Ben Franklin?
Oh, my part.
If she'll give Ben, I think I can all handle Mr. Lincoln.
Were there
Or we
any?
might have split and get two Jeffersons in the George.
I'm a Baptist pastor, pray.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Were there any other community service programs you were thinking about after you saw those formula items?
did we ever decide on the, well, let me see. I'm trying to look at it, make sure I have it right. Wasn't there some discussion about the line item for $7,500 on?
And I did make that change.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm still looking at the formula driven sheet, it's still reflected there, so I guess that's why. I was just trying to review here.
Wait, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, the economic development, yeah, 5656.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, so it's reflected on the new
Yes.
email documents you sent, okay.
yes.
No, not on the new one, but.
That was on the one I sent
Yeah, right, I see it now.
yesterday.
Yes.
Not on there, on the budget itself.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And if I might, Mr. Chair, we've had a little bit, Medina is back and she and Tabitha have had more conversations about those funds. And I think yesterday, they wanted to make sure we reminded you that that is really funds not for the EDA, but it is for the county's economic development efforts. And while sometimes that line's a little fuzzy, it really is for the economic development departments and not necessarily the EDA. And so that's been kind of the fund for if it turns out that there's a trade show or something we need to go to or something. That's how that's been used in the past. One item related to that we've been working through just as late as last evening is, I'm hoping we can find it out of our current year funds, is that we really need to get Medina a functioning computer with a much more substantial memory. And so that'll probably run around to $2,000, $2,200 or so for that. Right now she's using pieces and parts of 3 different computers back there to try to make things work. So,
Yeah, good grief is right.
Good grief. So we're hopeful that can come out of year end, but that is an expense that we probably need to have either this year or early next year.
So that would be back to economic development, tourism.
Yeah, but we're still trying to figure out that we think we probably have some carryover. I think you all were working on that a little bit yesterday. But wanted to make you all aware of that whichever year it falls into, that would be on our recommendation list.
So if we were to put more money back in to cover the computer cost, if it wasn't there.
It should be there this year, I think.
Okay.
I think we'll be able to do it.
All right.
I just want to make sure you all were aware of that situation.
Well, should that be in their budgeted, in their section of the budget instead of here?
Yes.
Yeah, that line should not be there.
No, that,
So that's what you're saying, right? Jerry, you don't think 5656 should be here in
It
community
should be
services?
under their budget, since that's what they're using it.
well, it's not Economic Development Authority. It might be under the Community Development line.
But, so Ladina and everything is under your budget. So maybe that line should go
Be
to,
under there.
I mean, Medina is a department.
yeah,
So we could move it up to the 81,200.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
I believe that's
absolutely.
up here.
yeah, okay, community
It
development,
just keeps
yes,
everything more together instead of
I agree,
out here in no man's land.
Sure.
yeah, I agree,
Hello.
yeah.
Just
Yeah, I
to,
know that changes, but
Sorry about my absence. You can't bail, hey, it's early. You just got one letter.
well,
it just makes it cleaner and keeps everything together. I know for years we had problems with school budgets, you'd bounce around all over the place.
Yeah.
They finally got theirs, and here we're doing similar, so kind of get those kind of things in the area they need to be.
I mean, you can put it as a line there that says economic development, yeah.
And just, Mr. Chair, if I might, for the record, want to let everybody know, including Mr. Coleman and the public, that Mr. Yoder has joined us. So now we are full, not just with the quorum, but full membership.
My apologies for being late. I didn't know until about 8:20 that I would be late.
I suggested to them you should have followed the little red Mazda that was going very quickly.
If you'd fell in behind it, you'd made it.
Well, I made it to town, I was in town at 8 o'clock, I just stopped at the wrong place and then, someone owed me money and I happened to catch him, so we settled that. It's been a few months.
Sometimes you gotta strike while that iron's hot.
Won't go any farther.
What we've done in your absence is we reduced the amount of the rail down to 5,500, and we just moved the tourism line,
No, the economic.
the economic development
Yeah, what we
tourism
talked
line
about.
out
Yeah.
to the community development.
Okay, I'll leave again if you keep cutting.
And I guess next, is there any other things in the community development, in the community service programs?
So, 6058 for brain injury services, you have noted that our portion should only be about $500. So while we have that deductible,
I don't know, we have one there, I'm willing to.
If you look at the number of clients they say they
Gotcha.
have from each area, you'll see the number, we're paying a larger percent than the expected number of clients from our area. It's sort of like the Highland, the Skyline, where one year one county might have most clients and another year it might be us. We have had more clients in the past, but right now it's down, so we could really cut that one if we wanted.
I think we'll stay with where our formula puts us, and if we need to adjust it later, we can deal with it then.
I agree, Justin.
So move that one down to 500?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'll give a nod.
Sure.
I can agree with that, since there is a formula, it's just, I can remember many years we didn't contribute a penny and we actually had people in the program and other people were paying for our part,
Yeah.
so I'm torn on that, but if we've got a formula that's, as long as we keep following the formula, I can live with that. And if it goes up, hopefully it won't, but if the numbers they're serving goes up during the year, they can certainly put in a request for additional funds for the formula then.
Is there anything else in the community service programs?
We funded plenty last year, is there a reason that
We got the nicest letter from Carrie Ackerson saying, thank you so much for all your help in with the CARES money. Because of that, this year we are not going to request any funding. So next year I think you'll be getting a request again, but this year they said we've done as much as they need.
So we'll have to keep that in mind. Well, that's what
Yeah.
happened.
That's what happened last year.
Yeah,
But
make sure.
isn't that a nice?
Well, it's good to know that they aren't just
Correct.
taking money.
Yep.
Just taking them.
Yup. Absolutely. So, did we mention about the mileage for the PSA? Were we going to?
Actually, this is the $30 a month stipend for the thing, plus FICA, so actually it needs to be a little bit more than 1,200 if you say so many board members times 12 months times FICA, but the thing is not everybody goes to every meeting for every month, so 1,200's worked out to.
Okay, so there is no mileage in there.
There's no mileage,
Okay.
not one person, I ought to just take the mileage off.
Yeah.
And just have it more compensation.
Yeah.
Apparently at one time they paid mileage, but no one requested anymore.
Well, it probably helps that we've tried to put people close to town, whose districts are affected too.
Right.
Some of them driving from checking about.
Well, I guess the one from Indian Valley's probably traveling the longest. But he hadn't heard anything either, so.
The majority of that board is made up of people from closer to towns.
Yeah.
I guess you and him probably travel the
Yeah, we
longest,
do.
don't you?
Tell me again where we're standing with this ICE program.
So, Angie, came and met with, Cindy and myself. I guess it's been maybe 2 weeks ago now.
Angie Cuddy?
Yes, Angie Cuddy came and met with us, and essentially where we are, as we understand it, now there was supposed to be some additional conversation at the Tobacco Commission meeting, and I haven't heard a report back on that, so we'll need to follow up.
When was that held?
But essentially what's happening is, as you know, the other counties that participate in that program put money up themselves. We've been fortunate enough that our portion has been covered by the Tobacco Commission. The Tobacco Commission going forward has taken a policy position that they will only cover the tuition for students who are not general studies students, essentially. So if they declare themselves to be in education or, some kind of trade or nursing or something, then that will be covered. But the ones that are general studies, which are generally folks who are hoping to transfer to a four-year college, that they won't be covering that. And I think it would be fair to say that Angie has tried her best to fight that position, but that is the position that the staff of the Tobacco Commission has taken. And so in the interim, what your advocate on the commission has, I believe, gotten them, from our conversation with Angie's gotten them to agree to is at least continue to fund the kids who are general studies who are already in the program.
Right.
And then going forward, if, that person would still really like to keep funding everyone, but at least don't leave these kids that are, partway through the program hanging. So I think that's what's going on there. Since Angie came to see us, I've gone through kind of what the strategic plan and those kind of things for the Tobacco Commission, and it looks like, and you all probably know this already, that their focus is much more on trying to focus on high-tech, high-growth kind of stuff, potentially even bringing folks into the region and reimbursing folks for four-year degrees when they get done. And all of those it just represents a different strategic direction that's coming from the commission. So I think our community college is trying really hard to continue things, but we may be in a position going forward that if you want to continue, you would have to assist with picking up that tuition.
And I know it's a varying number, but do you have any kind of average in how many students going through that program do the general studies?
Angie gave that to us. I want to say it was about 7 to 8 a year, but it could vary from year to year.
Right, I'm sure it does.
How many? Like 20?
It was a lot more than 20. It was.
Well, if we had all of them, it was closer to like 40.
Exactly. About 40 students, maybe about 7 or 8 in general studies.
So it would behoove us to have the community college staff work with our high school staff, to work with our students, to make them understand the gravity of how to proceed into community college.
Well, I made the suggestion that everyone declare a major when they get in one of the programs, take the general courses, but
Correct.
they've already outthought us. They also don't allow people to change their major. So that strategy wouldn't work. You couldn't claim I'm going to be a business student and then not get a certificate in the program you're in. It's all about being in a certificated program and completing it.
Well, if they were just doing general studies to begin with, to qualify for the program, whether it's nursing, business, or whatever, they complete their 2 years there and get their degree, and that then transfer to a 4
They
year.
could do that, but they would have to do it in nursing. They would have to do it in business.
So they're saying if they, once they go to the 4 year, if they change their major, then they have to repay it?
No, they cannot just be in general studies for 2 years and not be in a certificated program.
Right, well, I'm saying though, they could be in the program, you know, if they're leaning toward a business and they haven't
Well, that's the thing,
decided.
you'd have to get a student to make that choice.
Well, that's what I'm saying, while they're at New River, they could do that. Then if, when they transfer to the 4 year, they could change their, to
True.
whatever, couldn't they?
True.
Most
Instead
Although they
of,
may not have the courses,
that
they may have to take other courses.
Although,
yeah, it
You
just,
just be an engineer and you go to nursing, you might not transfer.
Right.
right,
And the problem, of course, is at that age,
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
lots of them don't.
they don't know what they want.
so,
I had personal experience with that.
I'm 41 and I still don't know.
You want to earn a living.
That'd be nice.
Be nice.
My understanding at one time was that the Tobacco Commission was looking at helping the students that were moving towards technology, like welding and drafting and stuff like that. Is that what they still?
But they're just basically eliminating anyone that's just doing general studies without a.
I mean, would one of our options be to just offer that? To just offer,
That is one of the options.
I mean, because part of what we're trying to do, I think, with the SACE program is give people the opportunity to
Get there.
get
Yeah.
at least a 2-year degree. And that's kind of the,
Of course, New River doesn't like that
sure.
because it is a good stepping
Yeah, it
stone
is.
for a lot of students who plan to go on to college. But that is certainly an option. And of course, when they go to the schools, they tell every kid you can get a 2-year college paid, and now they'd have to say, you're only going to get that if you're going into a certificated program.
it seems very short-sighted of the Tobacco Commission right now.
It is.
At this stage in our
It's like a way to carrot and
region.
jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I understand right, you're saying that they would pay someone to move to the region
Yeah,
to
Yeah,
reimburse their 4-year degree?
Yeah.
To move here, but they wouldn't pay for,
kids that are local.
2-year general
Yeah.
studies.
well, I think if you read through the whole strategic plan, and you all kind of know this inherently, obviously their funding source is shrinking.
Yes, it is.
And so this is part of their plans to try to continue to exist.
Bolster.
Yes.
Did they mention what the general 2-year general studies would cost first
It's
year?
about $2,000 a semester for each student.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking,
About 10,000.
well, like I say, 7 students, 21, 2,000, 14,000 a semester, 2 semesters. I mean, a whole year would be about 28,000. Of course, some of these students, they call them all A students, but a lot of them get funding through FAFSA. So not
Yeah,
just because they're in the program does not mean
they're using.
that they're using the money from us.
Or all that would be allowed?
Yeah,
The ACE just supplements
The
it.
ACE supplements it, and we don't know how many of those general studies students got funding from some other source.
And I will say that a lot of the seniors that are going to New River have already taken some courses here at our high school, and really don't want to go to a 4-year college, and are quite content on going to the 2-year college and receiving their degree from New River, and only having 1 year of college. So most of them, though, are probably not in general studies,
Correct.
but that is less burden on the program because they already are earning a lot more. Well, I think it's something worth funding for sure.
And although this year, I really don't know if we need any funding in it for this year.
Right.
But it's, again, we don't know.
Something we need to keep on our
Keep on our
radar.
radar for the future.
Maybe we can make a list of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lenny, Ace, just,
And what Giles County does is they have a huge fundraiser every year, sort of like
Yeah.
Floyd County has the Empty Bowls program for backpacks.
yeah.
They have the mud run that raises
Yes.
money for their part every year. So
Yeah, that
I
might be
mean,
something we need to,
that's something we might want to consider.
yep.
They have a big turnout for that, and they have a lot of fun doing it. So. Mud run.
We could do it on your farm.
Do it. I got pig pens.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
guys it every time it rains, don't you?
You could have a grease pig contest.
Pigs. Whoever catches the pig.
Well, what did you
go
used to
college.
say, that the donkey basketball
Donkey basketball.
used to raise a lot of money?
The county versus the town.
Yeah, used to raise a lot of money.
We used to fill the gym up with
Yeah.
it, so.
That's hilarious. Times have changed, I'm sure.
Well, yes, but
Well, we definitely do it in the old gym.
I was gonna say,
Just do
I would
it.
like to see you lead a donkey into that new gym. There'd be a few people that would probably faint.
No.
Have good training for
But
our
Keith is getting successful in that. Don't be in the first group of riders. That way you can watch the donkeys, you can kind of tell what they do and how they do. And,
And they get tired.
well, no, they don't get tired.
there also might be some grant programs out there for rural areas to help with this as supplemental to the Tobacco Commission. I'm just,
Well, the program's been so successful, I would hate to see students
I know,
denied.
yeah, just because they
That's
don't
what
know.
bothers me,
And that's what community college is there for sometimes, for a student to
to explore.
explore. They may be thinking they're supposed to be going into nursing, and the next thing they know, this technical computer IT work has just completely taken a hold of them, or
And a lot of success stories coming out there.
Or they
absolutely,
may
absolutely.
decide on a specific trade, or, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it's there for, is the options.
Well, some of them got into a trade they wasn't even interested in until they did their community service, and they found out they didn't like it. So,
I can put them on the Tobacco Commission on staff as kind of on my list of folks to.
Who's our rep on the commission again? Who's our rep?
Chris Hurst?
Yeah.
She's the one she said, Chris Hurst is the one she said has been advocating for us.
Okay.
But I can go down, I have to be in Charlottesville later this month for something else, so Richmond's not that much farther. If they're
Is
available, I can.
Mr. Kilgore involved in that still?
Oh, yeah.
I-
Oh,
He'd
yeah.
have better luck there than.
Yeah, maybe. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think
One
one
half
of
down to
the,
the other.
yeah, or one of the concerns that Angie mentioned the staff has raised is that if these kids end up with 4-year degrees, they're more likely to leave the area than stay. So I'm just gonna try to has some conversation with the staff and see what's going on.
Yes.
There's some way to address that.
I mean, 2 out of 3 of mine stayed.
And a lot of kids will leave and come back.
Yeah.
That happens all over.
Yeah, and I think my third is coming back eventually. So, I don't know.
As long as they got Angie involved, there will be some movement.
Oh, yeah.
She set up, I mean, she is,
Yeah, she's on top of things.
I don't think they could have found a better person for that.
Agreed.
Yeah, she's passionate about it for sure.
So do you all have any more questions on your budget, or?
Well, that was it for community service programs, but we still have a couple of other areas highlighted.
I was looking at the next page.
We're $395 to the good now. On the hauling, I think we all agreed, the reason I left it highlighted was you had wanted to look at tipping fees we charge contractors,
Yeah.
we discussed that. And it's $55 per ton. Had been paying $32 per ton, and we're going up to $34 per ton.
So thereby, does that make it 57?
And then Mr. Booth had also asked for a copy of the section of the solid waste ordinance that dealt with the tipping fees. So I don't know if you want to have that discussion right now about do we want to increase our tipping fees or not?
Well, that's, I remember the 55, that covers the 32. That also helps out with, there's more cost involved than just when it's dumped over there.
Yeah.
The hauling.
And hauling and our people handling and cost was like,
Yeah.
I think it should go up myself.
By the same amount?
Or maybe
At
round it
least.
up to 50 to 60. Round it up to 50. My dad's a little off this one. Round it up to 60.
And I'm trying to remember, do we have to go to public hearing when we increase that?
Probably.
Probably.
It's a fee.
What's that ordinance?
Yeah, that's our ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, if you read B, we might need to get Steve. I think we might be able to just simply do it by resolution without having.
Yeah, or by subsequent resolution.
I'm trying to remember how we set that up, but
And when did we say we had last taken it to
Oh, it does say we're by subsequent resolution.
resolution? So when was the last time we had done anything at that $55 level? Do we know?
I don't
I
recall.
don't think it's ever been changed from,
The ordinance is from 94.
Right.
I don't recall it changing since I've been
I don't
here.
know.
Changed the agreement, when I was working on the whole
Yeah,
setting up, agreement, we didn't really even have
correct.
an agreement. So I remember working on that, but I don't remember the fees and so.
Yeah.
it may be from where it was originally.
Well, then.
Double check I double check with the attorney, but I think the way you set this up, it can be done by resolution and not public hearing.
The other question I would have then would be also on the, I just happened to think about, after our meeting, was the boxes we have out that we charge monthly fee on.
Like at residences or businesses.
Don't we have boxes out that we charge a month?
We charge $100 rent per month.
So I wonder if maybe that needs to
Go up too.
snowing out too, just because
It's
that
about
trash is costing us more now,
100 a month plus there how much it weighs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
plus what it weighs, so we can take off.
Let me jump in here for 1 minute. I got a guy called during the night, pretty irate, and he's out late. he said they're all too close together and the hinges or the slides are bent and they can't get the doors open and people were just piling it up in front of the boxes.
Down by Ridgeview? Or down,
About Parkview,
oh, south,
yeah,
So,
Parkway South, just out of town, on the left.
yeah,
There's
One way
there's
to-
only two boxes there.
yeah. He-
I was hoping that those might be two on the list with the new dumpsters coming too.
Yeah, two bare ones.
We tried to get
There'll
across
be a
the
bear problem there.
Oh, I watched the bears go in.
Yeah.
But that's also the site where somebody keeps dumping down 50-pound bags of corn. So.
I had a bear in my yard yesterday, won't know where my green box is at. About midday.
we've actually had one of our businesses call and ask if we would allow them to purchase their own version of a more bear resistant box. And they would pay for it.
And just charge for the dumping.
Yes, and so my answer was, of course, as long as it works with our machines, and let us know if it works, because we might reimburse you as a pilot and start buying more of those.
And maybe the
So thank
company
you.
will pay them for advertising.
Yeah, it's up at Marburyville.
Okay.
Well, and also, in my travels, I've heard more about, I know we addressed some of them, but if we can get them to fill in the grading around these dumpster sites, I had a bunch of calls or discussions with potential petition signers that were, there's no wonder, says you carry your car in all pieces getting in and out. And I know they've addressed some of them, but we need to get on some kind of schedule or something.
They must have got tired of listening to me up there by Floyd Mountain Road, because when they milled that down there, they fixed them. Boy, you talk about nice when you got
Yeah, I'd actually gotten stuck on one, Deer Run again, they put some gravel there that's still not enough, I don't know.
Well, that leads to the next line that's highlighted, which is green box site development. We don't have anything in there, but can you hear me, Justin? About
Yeah,
green
well,
box
thank you.
site development? We don't
Yeah,
have,
if I could interject just before we move into that one thing, I'm sitting here trying to remember, but in saying this, hopefully someone else will remember. It seemed like maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we were going through the budget, Terry had compiled a list of our fees, to include, our building permit fees, all of the, landfill fees and things. And if I remember, we were nearing, we were a little lacking on maybe the roll-off container fees, but we were getting pretty close to being maybe a little ahead of, if I remember right, this is the part I'm focusing on, of Franklin Container, because they were bringing stuff up here. So in our conversations about these fees, if my memory's right, I just wonder if we need to be careful and with the places we know around us that are providing some services in the county that we don't overfeed and lose customers. And this is all a very fuzzy memory, but I can almost remember that big large brown piece of paper she had all that wrote down on, but I'd have to go look for it. I don't know where in the world.
you got it,
Lauren's
got it.
Oh, okay.
And he's got it, yeah.
Yes, I have it with me.
Well, just come on board, making sure that our fees are covering our costs. I just don't want to get in a position where, somebody else can run up the mountain and provide the same service at a less fee. Does that make sense?
Is
Well,
there a possibility they could cover all our
Yeah,
sites
I-
for less?
it wouldn't necessarily be bad if they were to take over.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that side of the thing too.
Well, are they in those instances, are they still hauling the trash to our tipping floor, or are they taking it back out of the county with them?
I have no idea. I just remember that brief conversation. I think I did anyway. Not too trusting of my memory right at the current moment, but
Because I know we have some agreements with Franklin County, or we did, to serve as part of their citizens up on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Back out,
Hardwood.
what is it?
That's another
Wall,
one.
wall
Lawn,
knob area?
Yeah, we probably need just $10,000 a year, I think. That Franklin pays. We'd have to work back.
You know, that, maybe we could find out some of those details.
Yeah, waste management, I'm sorry.
We hear back from the attorney on how we need to go about raising this, and maybe we can take it up at that time.
Mr. Coleman, this is a couple years ago, but the only one that offers green box sites was Waste Management. And for a 2 cubic yard dumpster, it was $138.05 monthly, plus a delivery charge
Their boxes.
for their boxes.
And I bet you that's gone up.
And they're charging 138, we went to 110 or one, whatever, would still be
Without
under.
delivery charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, with fuel increases and everything, I think we need to look at those things.
Yeah.
Okay. We will certainly put that on the list.
I know one other potential customer, potential business in the county that may be looking at doing some green, but not some roll-offs. But, I mean, it's like we said, I mean, that's, the more the better, I think, because it gives people options, and we're not necessarily trying to be in the product business.
No.
But I did talk to a gentleman out in my district the other day that was talking about starting a roll-off business to just give people some options, not a large business.
Well, if they're, now, well, with this, with waste management, I take it, there's certain stipulations in our solid waste ordinance that apply to other trash haulers in this county. So, you know, I think there was one gentleman,
Yeah.
that way, they run into a little problem with it, but,
Yeah, he was trying to start out on something like that.
which I don't have any problem, I don't wanna knock him out, but he's gotta meet our ordinance.
Oh, yeah.
So anybody that's coming into the county has to meet our ordinance requirements as far as their insurances and all that stuff, so.
Well, that's something to look at. It might not necessarily change our budgets.
No.
The biggest thing, I guess, is I just don't want the average citizen out there to have to carry the cost of a business, or even if it's a small amount. You know, it's not fair to the average citizen. Businesses be passing some of that burden along to them too.
I appreciate that, so if you would like, we can kind of add that to the whole conversation
Sure.
in a little bit about, or not today, but in the future, about where you want to go with the whole subject of solid waste. So I will tell you that, again, having a recognizable card is useful. So some of the solid waste folks that just approached me in town, knocked on my window and said, hey, I want to tell you what I think. So it has been interesting, but I think that your solid waste staff would recognize that there are probably in total too many locations out there. And I think that's a lot of the issue. So whatever our solution is, if it continues to include some type of sites, probably a recommendation that will be coming forward is to maybe have fewer sites over time.
Nicer sites.
And
That have larger ones.
yes,
and-
and further away from the county line.
And also, as heard from person after person, that we need more recycling at some of these sites that doesn't have, they want to see
But having larger sites, you could offer more.
more.
Did any of y'all see the little Facebook post, there's a Bent Mountain page on Facebook that I'm on just because I'm on that other county? And so like Floyd group or some of those, there's also a Bent Mountain page group. And one of the individuals on there, I noticed over the weekend, had got cited for dumping trash in our green boxes by the deputies. And they were quite the discussion there about all these people. It kind of was eye-opening, all these folks that live in Roanoke County that come out here to dump trash.
Yeah.
And none of them realizing, and I actually, me and my big mouth,
I
say,
did.
there's stickers on every green box that says, Floyd County residents, household trash only. I mean, this isn't rocket science. And, and they took it well, you know, and everybody's like, well, I didn't know, you know. But it was a little bit eye-opening that
Yeah.
if it's happening in, there are people from Roanoke County who have the trash truck, curbside services, the trash truck drives up to their house and picks it, or by their house and picks it, and they're bringing stuff to their green boxes. I can't imagine what we're getting from other counties that don't have that. I mean, it really was, you know, there was 60 or 70 comments on there, and
Well, Joe
it just
tells
kind of
us.
opened my eyes.
Carol, Patrick.
And Joe tells us every day about
No,
it, in every meeting about them, Carol.
That's one reason we had to move the site, or lose the site on Route 8, was because,
Right.
mainly because it was more construction debris than
Right.
From
household.
Montgomery.
That
Well, that was one of the
come in
things
the
I
middle of
said.
the night.
That was one of the things that was said on there. It was like, well, we follow people all the time come from Roanoke with whole truckloads of stuff to go to green boxes. You know? I'm like, well, you do you?
I'll be going to Hills when I have a truck, and I know exactly.
Yeah,
Where
Yeah.
it's going.
But I think, yeah, we're probably, because then you could go ahead and put camera, if you had 10 sites in the county or something, you could put cameras up and really do a good job of policing what's happening within those.
Just
I'm-
don't
My
get it.
fear though is that when we do that,
We're gonna have dumps all over.
I understand that, but I mean, if you could just police them.
Yeah.
I mean, just for example, yesterday I drove by the one closer to my house at the corner of Hummingbird and 221. And there's these big, huge, like sectional sofas sitting there. And I couldn't see who it was, their back was turned to me, but one of our workers was there. And he was just standing there, just doing this, looking at it, trying to figure out how to get this thing in the truck, you know. And I knew that's what he was trying to figure out. How am I gonna hook this thing where I can get it up in there?
With our expanded hours, there's no excuse for that.
other than people being lazy.
Other than people don't want to take it all the way.
Just thrown right in the middle of the parking lot.
And they don't, I don't mean it ugly, but they don't appreciate it. You look at Patrick County, basically, they got their tipping floor, and that's it. They don't have green boxes. Some of the businesses do, but they don't have green box. If you live up in Dan or Woodline, you have to take it all the way there unless you pay a company to come and get it.
You know, on Schuler Road, they got pickup, you know, that part's in Patrick.
Yeah.
So, they have pickup there, they could leave it there and they could pick it up. But I've wondered about, but I figured it'd be a Pandora's box if you did, but you're like, them big boxes. Like at the elementary school at Wells, where you got a lot of room, put one of them there for these people that clean up around their house, and they got car tires and construction stuff to throw it in
You
there.
roll off there.
Yeah, and, but then next thing you know, people that don't want to throw it in little boxes, they
You
fill
don't be
them in.
putting it in that, it'd be hard to
Yeah,
keep it separated.
and I thought that would cut down on some of that stuff, maybe if, I know at Bones Mill and Buffalo Mountain Road, on the weekends, like Jerry said, late in the evenings or during the night, all this construction stuff, especially since, they're working on one out in Union Valley. It's all coming in Bones Mill down there.
Well, maybe when we get through this budget, maybe we ought to set aside some time and just totally spend on the waste part.
I think that's the big,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
It's getting worse.
well, I'm hearing more of that from the citizens than I am anything else, that and education, so.
I think people really they want a nice place to, they don't want to drive through a mud hole in the winter or, you know, dodge the junk in front of a green box in the summer to just throw the trash away. I mean,
Well, I could get
back
an
to
open
what this
discussion.
is, I mean, I really think we need to put something in that,
Mhm.
that green box site development line and have it as a yearly thing where we pick a site.
And Will Dobson called the other day. I thought, oh Lord, he's gonna complain, because first thing, I want to talk to you about Red Ford Road. And I thought, oh God, they're dumping trash up there. But he said, it's not the trash. Did that guy ever contact you for that? The guy Will was talking about, did he ever contact you on that info? About his history on that right away?
No. Sorry, I've got two things related to VDOT. Mostly is people complaining that the post office, well, it says they'll no longer deliver to their house because the road is impassable. I think you're on it.
Really?
Those are kind of.
We've got multiple, and it's not just that one, there's another road.
Yeah,
It's roads that drop off the mountain from Floyd into
Patrick, oh.
some of those roads out there that
Oh.
most offices tell them, we're not going down anymore. VDOT's saying, they're maintained to the same level they've been maintained for years.
Well, that's a problem.
So VDOT's not planning on maintaining them any better.
Yeah.
That's a whole other.
I figured that was on the 8th to 7th.
It might be a good interhuman nectar story for Channel 10.
Well, I did suggest to the gentleman that the best, he really needed to talk to his delegate senator, because, you know, I mean, that's really what the buck stops there.
Yeah, literally.
And
The buck.
I would like to see maybe 30,000 or something like that. If nothing else, you could use money to, you know, like, there's some existing ones, like the one that I was talking about there on Hummingbird, the corner of Hummingbird and 221, where we get so much wind and the trash blows down the church behind it. Just getting a fence around that would really help.
Fences are expensive.
I understand that. I'm just saying, I would like to see some money there, but at least we could start doing some.
Yeah, I don't know, 30,000. I mean, a backyard fence, the kids are putting up costs.
The people up on Sugar Road that I talked to, trying to find the site of her, first word out of her mouth, make sure it's fenced.
Yeah.
Make sure you fence it, yeah.
We're gonna have to fence all those sites.
That's what I told him, I said,
And
fence
if we're
it.
going to that expense before we do it, we need to look at, you know.
Consolidate. I mean,
if
I
we're
think
looking
this
at
is-
Consolidating,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense to go out here and put fences up around every single site and then tear it out and.
I mean, I don't mean to speak when Chairman has left, but I mean, I think this is something to start discussions about June or July. I mean, like, really focus the
Immediately.
meeting. Yeah. And I think I brought that up.
Well, we said in the comments in the paper, so we were going to take a raw deep dive. They
Right.
didn't get the hours correct.
Deep dive. Right. Deep dive. Deep dive into a green box.
I don't know how y'all feel about it, but maybe, and I know in years past, when you have a issue like that that impacted the county, I know there at one time, we held some meetings of, hold a meeting in the district, go to check and listen.
Yeah, the schools.
At the, the schools, of course, Little River and Floyd County piggybacked, but still.
Well, half Little River might come to, check, and
Right.
half would come to the elementary school, and half of yours might come to Willis.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I'd go to all of them, to be honest with you.
well, I was just throwing that idea out there, that way kind of get a feeling.
Town halls.
Well, kind of have a town hall so that people in that area, they might not come all the way up here, but they might come out to there.
Talking trash at the town hall.
I think there's some other things you can do, some online surveys and stuff to see what people
Well,
really.
that's fine too,
Just, you might get more activity with.
All right, that might be better than what I was suggesting. Just something different to reach more people.
Yeah, and find out what people actually want, because
I think do both.
people may say, I would drive 5 miles to drop my trash off if I could pull into a nice gravel lot with no mud and
Yeah,
fenced and weeded and recycling and,
yeah.
versus having one a mile from my house. I don't know, it's.
Yeah, the two companies that I have talked to about what would happen if they came in
Right.
have both indicated their recommendation would be convenience centers.
Yep.
And they've sent some examples of other communities. The one does quite a few out at the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which they kind of liken to here in some ways, which is kind of true.
In terms of its rural, right.
Well, it's rural, there's a significant number of unpaved roads,
Right.
and a lot of wind.
Yeah.
A lot of wind. But
We certainly
that's,
qualify for all that, don't we?
Yeah.
yeah,
Just not the.
Well, I was thinking at one time, it's been a long time ago, that we actually had a map that actually, it's fairly large.
Yeah.
And it actually pinpointed where every one of our green box sites.
Yeah, it's right by the copier right now.
Okay.
yeah, it's in
So
the solid
it
waste
is up
report.
there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's a big one right there.
And it's updated?
The only thing that has changed, I think, since that's been done, to my knowledge, is, we've lost a couple since I've been here. And
Well, what
that's-
about
I
the
think
one-
there's 38 now.
That was dated too.
That's dated
I
too.
haven't been back in there much, so I
Yeah,
didn't know it was that.
yeah.
I knew there was one somewhere.
It does not reflect the latest changes.
Okay. So we could run a new one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably for maybe put it on one of those phone boards.
Yeah, maybe if we could update it before we get into this in June or July, that way then we got the most up-to-date stuff and actually start looking at it, because
Well, and maybe we could, if we do that, in addition to the other data we've been talking about, we could also ask the drivers to kind of give us an indication of how heavily used they are. It's like a 1 to 5 scale. Like this one, the ones that you were talking about on 221, I go by that in the morning, There is not a day that there's not somebody out there that I drive by that doing what's on a day.
So my feeling is too that not only I think, getting the information from the boots on the ground is absolutely imperative. But I think it's a matter of, like Lauren said, the convenience for our citizens and making sure that the places are safe, that we can have everybody participate. I fear there's like a 30-year-old fear in the back of my head that when we do this, that there are going to be folks that say, well, what did they do that for? And then I can always remember seeing that hollow coming off of my ridge on 615 that was loaded with washing machines and dishwashers and refrigerators. Now that was a long time ago, 30, 35 years ago, and I don't think we're still in that place. I really don't.
it doesn't take but one or two.
I know, but I don't think we're in that place anymore. And I think that if we look at this with the idea of convenience, safety, streamlining, making it easier on our staff to be able to keep them cleaner, even more so, more trips than they're doing now, and in a sense, this will all probably be more cost effective.
Yeah, the mileage
Exactly.
is a big part of it,
Right.
which is wear and tear on the vehicle.
Correct. So, I think if we really take, like we said, this deep dive into trash and really look at it for the second decade of the 21st century,
And
or I guess the third decade.
Also, if you're going to build these sites and consolidate, you actually put roll-offs there where
Right.
white goods can be put in it.
Yeah.
Or furniture,
Recyclables.
or whatever.
Might be able to look at single stream now, and, I don't know.
I mean, it's not going to be a cheap venture, but it's,
But I think it pays for itself in the long run.
well, I think that, well, we get into it another time.
Would we like to put some money in this?
Yeah, I would.
I think we probably should move some into that, into that one green site development. I think we're gonna have to put some to start anyway.
Yeah, because I'm still trying to find, I had a good lead on some land up in there, but I don't know may have to put it on hold for a little bit. Need to move on because I gotta call UVA in a little bit.
How much?
Justin, you have a suggestion?
I'm good with 30.
I'm afraid, excuse me, I'm sorry. I mean, just looking at what we've recently done with the fencing cost alone, of course, that was a fair amount of excavation, but I don't know, 30 is a good starting point, but I think it probably needs to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50.
50, yeah. Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah. I mean,
Would you rather start with 50?
You know, if we're just starting, 30 would probably be a good place to
I mean, I'm thinking of just a few existing boxes, sites that could probably just use some fencing and.
But I don't know that you could do more than one with 30,000, maybe two. Maybe two.
If it's fencing alone.
If it's fencing alone.
Maybe two.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, that stuff's expensive.
yeah, our bill for the one at Indian Valley, now granted, that's a fairly tall fence, and, you know, our specs for that is, as you saw, were pretty strong, but I think that one still came out to, we ended up at 14 and a half. The original bid turned out to be the low bid.
All right.
So to Mr. Coleman's point, and then we spend a significant amount of money prepping it.
Right, prepping, grading.
So, but of course, that one is going from scratch too.
And I'll just be honest, and you know, the way our land lays, there's a probability at any site that we're gonna have to spend, you know, a lot of money in prep work depending on the location. And I don't know that we can cut much on the fencing structure because we've got a very problem. Still going to be a pretty strong structured fence in a lot of places to be able to withstand that.
Well, absolutely.
They'll learn.
I mean, I look at the cost of probably, we probably could be $10,000 or so cheaper than another site on land prep maybe. But I feel like it's going to be, you know, in the neighborhood of 50 plus anywhere you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine putting 50 in there, I was just doing 30 because I thought nobody else would go more than that.
Well, the problem is I don't know where we're going to pull it from.
Well, budget stabilization, I mean, it's where we're going to pull it from.
I just think, you know, this much of an increase and we're already taking it pretty hard, is my only concern.
I think it's the big issue. I mean, it's honestly what I've heard, that and roads, but I mean, we're not putting money toward roads, but,
Sure.
that's the two things I hear the most about right now is fix my road and fix my green box site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it go along the, I guess we're at like, what, 152 or 157 in budget stabilization?
Right, yeah, if we left it at 100 and moved over 50 or something.
Yeah, I think we put in, I think if, 157, 152, 721.
You got one more big change coming up too. Do want to warn you about that. We got the estimate on the roof at the courthouse, and we have 118,000 in the budget, but the estimate's 165,000, subject to change on construction costs.
That's not really surprising considering what construction costs are going right now.
So it was 118, now it's up to 165.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you might want to think about that.
These flat roofs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't know, you've heard that from me, but passport, I was screaming it back in the 90s.
Oh no, we redid this roof behind us. That was one thing that I brought up is putting some trusses across it. I mean, it's just some, but it is what it is.
And Mark says it's working well by putting that slide base to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway, for this, I thought I wanted to mention the other, because that is also looking at about a 50,000.
Fortunately, that's a one-time cost. So,
Yes.
yeah, so next year that money would be available.
well, it's one time now, but
Right, but this green box
it's
site development,
recurring.
hopefully that'll be a recurring.
Green box site development, I think ultimately if we move to our discussions in July and August, we're probably looking at minimum to develop 5 or 6 sites.
But you wouldn't necessarily do it all in one budget year. You might do one next spring, and then you might do another one next fall.
It is gonna have to be almost.
It's gonna have to-
But still, I mean, just looking ahead, it's gonna be more than 50,000 a pop to do a green box site development. If we were to buy land, grade, get boxes, fence, these convenience sites.
I mean, I hope some of these places we don't need to buy land.
Well,
I mean, there's-
it depends.
I'll just say
on-
one in particular that I thought a lot about is, that doesn't have the wind problems bad, is Station 3 Fire. Behind where the green boxes are now, there's a little chunk of land there. And you could develop a nice fence spot right there that would add some parking to the station, potentially, because right now, when you have a fire call, all the green boxes are blocked because the firemen, that's the only place they can park. So if you moved everything back a little bit, and then less some parking on the side, you could solve a lot of issues, but the land's already there, you know, so.
It's just like up there at the elementary school at Wills. Carolyn Spangler's land back there, that big hill, protects it from that north wind. Plus it's got a bank, 6 foot tall behind it. So, we don't have a wind problem there. And she's already put a real nice deer fence behind it, so that'd be one that we could hold off on for.
It's going to depend on the investment in the city. If we have to do a major investment, then we might be ahead to actually purchase property.
Right, but I'm saying there's gonna probably be a combination of, it's not gonna be a one size fits all.
No.
So, I mean, I think we just put some money in it, and then, once we get the plan done, next year, we may have a whole different discussion about it, but until we have a plan and know what we wanna do, I mean, it's really, you could talk in circles for hours, which we've already done.
So basically 50,000 and 50,000 needs to come out, is that basically what you're saying, Cindy?
Yes.
Boom.
Oh,
Is there a consensus on that?
I think Justin, did you say 50?
Yeah, I can go along with that.
Just because it's in the budget does not mean we have to spend it.
Correct,
Exactly.
correct,
It's just available if we decide we want to spend it.
and if we need to.
And are you okay with moving up another 50,000 on the roof for the courthouse?
I don't think we have a choice, do we?
Not if we want it fixed.
There you go.
I think we're gonna have to fix it before we're ordered to
It's
fix it.
cheaper than building a new courthouse.
But that's another discussion that's gonna happen, I'm afraid.
Well, it just depends on the average judge gets tired of his papers getting wet.
Courthouse maintenance is very high on my priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now the jury trials are opening up, they were hollering before.
Yeah.
Can you imagine now, the backlog?
So when
I don't
can that
have to
roof be
hurry.
started then, Cindy?
I don't know. And I can't guarantee that price is gonna hold because he did say subject to the cost of construction materials.
Who said that, Mark?
No, the person he had contacted. And the person had not come out and physically inspected the roof. I just told him we needed a number for today, and Mark said, based on the square footage and the problems, this is just an estimate from him. Okay, so this, we only had one other highlighted item. I don't really know that you had to make changes to it, but it was the computer services support that we talked a little bit about last time, how we've got the dollar amount split between the cyber risk in the maintenance section versus the on-staff person in the county administrator section.
I think there needs to be a little more fluidity there.
I don't understand.
I think maybe up that a little bit more, decrease the other one a little bit more. I don't know.
I mean, as long as it's the whole amounts in the budget, we can always do budget
Okay,
transfers.
if that's fine, then I'm fine with that.
One thing, I mean, when you go to advertise,
Yeah, based on experience,
Yeah.
that's the old line that's put in.
yeah,
Well, and I think what Cindy is getting to is when we go to advertise either for an individual or put out an RFP, a smart person will look at our budget and see what that number
Yes.
is. So that's why we have separated them, so. There's not a single bogey.
Does it cover benefits and everything?
Well, that was the intention. We've got 82,000 for the new person in the county administrator's budget, and that would be salary and benefits.
But to your point, Mr. Coleman, I think in the end, it'll probably be a little bit more than that. I would include
It all depends on what you're getting though.
Yeah.
Because you may get, if you decide to hire someone with less experience, you may need help on the top end.
Right.
I don't know the technical terms.
Right.
But if you get someone that is very, very good, very experienced, they might
And
have
cover
more
everything.
support,
Right.
but they may need more salaries.
Right.
Either way, you're gonna spend the money, it's just
Right.
how you,
Just depends on
who you can find.
Correct.
That might be as hard as anything.
Yeah.
So if you're good with the amounts and where they are, I'll just unhighlight them.
Yes, yeah, I put 90, but that's just me.
Can I bring one other thing up? One of the things I've been a little bit worried about over the last couple of weeks is just fuel costs. And
Yep.
I know last year we went through and trimmed because fuel was down, but I don't see that it's gonna come down considerably in the foreseeable future, so that's the one concern I have with throughout all the budget is just,
Yeah, fuel.
I think we trimmed 10 or 20% last year across the board.
No,
Might
it
have
It's
been
like
10.
18.
So the government canceled permits for drilling in Alaska yesterday. And they said that was gonna spike gas in the next couple of weeks too.
I just think it's just a lot of things going on
Yeah.
that I don't see. I mean, the conflict between Israel and Palestine, just different things through it, unstable regions of the world. I just don't see where,
Increased hurricanes, shutting down
Yeah.
distilleries
yeah.
or refineries.
Just-
To increase my distillery.
Yeah, so it's increasing.
What those beef prices doing there,
Oh, yeah.
Farmer Yoder?
Hurricane
Also, the
season.
hook is going to drop like a rock.
it's gonna drop even more.
So it's killed.
Hurricane season's coming up, so the Gulf probably getting closed down.
I don't see, we looked in our crystal ball last year and said, man, with the COVID and everything, people were driving less and so we were able to find some savings there, but I just worry that
Now that it's opened
that we
up.
may need to go through and put 10% back in there or something across the board.
Well, for example, I'm in county administrators, and I'm looking at what we've got now versus what we had back in 2019 and 2020. We have 1,000 now, we had 1,500 at one time.
None of our cars get, none of our vehicles.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted me to right now, I could go through and change everything back to what the rates were
Well,
back
I
in
think
fiscal year
it changes
20.
a
Alright,
little bit.
so I'm just looking at a chart, back in 2019, gas on average was $2.94 a gallon. And on average now it's $3.07 a gallon. In 17 it was 2.5, $2.50 a gallon. 18 was $2.98 a gallon. So that bears what you were saying.
Like EMS, for example, we cut from the 2020 budget, we cut $1,000 to the current proposed budget. And I kind of suspect their call numbers are going up.
So I get ready to say, even if gas prices don't go up and diesel, they run their stuff dead.
Solid waste, we cut 2,500 out.
Diesel definitely is gonna go up.
I could very quickly put everything back to the 2020 amounts, and then we can see what the bottom line is for what we need
Yeah,
to do.
that might be.
That might be, yeah.
I'd hate for everybody to go over on it, and then you think, well, it's only 2,000 here and 3,000 there, but it may add up to 30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let's do something.
I was thinking about that while I was pumping $100 worth of off-road diesel into my tractor the other day. Or it just went up 70 cents or something.
Let's look at what the bottom line is right now, and then I can do what I just said, and then we can see what the bottom line is then.
Yeah.
So right now, we're off by 99,605,
Right, but we're gonna take.
but I'm gonna go up in every place, I'm gonna put it back to the 2020 in now.
Although some of these, like county administrator, maybe it was because we weren't driving as much.
Well, we weren't driving as much because of COVID.
COVID, yeah, that's true.
You didn't have many conferences.
Yeah, everything was online.
Yeah, everything was done.
I feel like once people were able to safely go back to conferences, they're gonna have them like crazy, try to make it full.
A lot of them, it's just like, downstairs, training just non-existent, so now
You've gotta,
it's
But they're
going
still
to be.
making Worcester visits and stuff, I mean,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
still,
but I'm talking about their training.
Right, right.
As far as conferences and
Richmond.
training and stuff,
Right.
it just for all intents and purposes got suspended.
it may not be as much as I think it is, I don't know, it just.
It's something to be wary
I
about.
was sitting there watching the gauge on that tractor.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Sitting there, was just pumping away.
Yeah.
That's like my word, man.
Interesting.
Huh, this is interesting, on sheriff's office, we actually
Yeah.
moved it up instead of down,
Wow.
I much wonder if we should go out some more.
45.
Sheriff?
Justin, you're fairly in the loop on, not to put any pressure on you, but for the amount of fuel used by the sheriff's office.
Yeah, like
I hate for you to
it's
speak.
calculated now, I wouldn't really feel comfortable saying, I don't see that. So I wouldn't really know what to say as far as
Just
that
from
goes.
a mileage standpoint, are y'all putting as many miles or more on than what you would have last year?
I guess is probably, I really don't know. I'd hate to say that, I haven't seen,
Okay,
don't want to step out of it.
Sure, I understand.
as of,
Sorry.
as of,
No, I shouldn't have put you there.
as of April 30th, you spent 31,000. You spent 4,400 for the month, so if we say another 2 months of that, we're only talking 40, so they'll be within their budget for this year. So even if we were to increase it, we probably wouldn't need too much more. Because, that's one department that has been running, I would say, like normal, so it'd just be the cost of the gas. I'll let you think about that one while I continue.
Yeah, he said what he wanted.
Yeah, that was before,
2,750.
that,
Yeah, I
you
know.
put it in December, now the
I know,
cost of fuel
I
went
know.
up a little bit different.
I get it. I get it, I know.
Actually, which one is that one?
Emergency services?
Kevin.
Kevin's.
I wonder if EMS doesn't need to go up.
It just sounds to me like they're running.
I mean, they are just all over the place, just last night. Yesterday afternoon till last night and then this morning. I mean, they were all over the county. They were out by you, they were out by me, they were out by Justin. Phew. A lot of miles. How much did they spend of their budget? Huh? Yeah, you know.
Fuel's really only went up in the last few months, so I don't know that even it's gonna be reflected in our spending necessarily.
I don't know, the calls seem,
Can I see the
They
call
have
volume?
spent 10,000, they spent 1,500 in April, so another 3,000, we'll put them at about 13,500.
so, it's a month ago, and the way it started.
This is the big one, of course, that's solid waste.
That's the mark, we had fewer boxes, you could say.
Yeah. Especially if they're pulled in.
Was,
When I was up to our property on Sunday,
Not really only 5,000.
But I did not change the sheriff's office.
right,
I wonder if we shouldn't have just a couple thousand.
maybe bring them up
I
to
don't know, what do
50.
y'all think?
I think it's probably not a bad idea, maybe just round it up to 50. Maybe just round it up to 50, instead of 47,250. Bring it up to 50.
And what does fuel
Oh,
cost?
42,750, okay.
They went up 50 cents a gallon.
Hold on. I know that right
Fuel
here.
costs went up on average by 50 cents a gallon.
Give or take, yeah.
It was, yeah. In January, it was $2.42. By May, the end of May, it's $3.07. So a little more than 50 cents a gallon.
That's the sheriff's office there.
Yeah.
44, 45.
That's it, 45. Yeah.
So you're only putting 45,000 in the budget stabilization. But it gets you 50,000 for the green box, it gets you 50,000 for the courthouse roof, and it gets you increasing the gas amount. And it's balanced.
So the courthouse roof, is this replacing and fixing the damaged spots or just the whole roof?
It's fixing the whole roof, it's not replacing it, we'd have to actually get Mark in here to see exactly.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, if, of course, we don't know what the future holds, but
Actually, he sent me the estimate, let me see what the estimate says.
because I mean, if the whole thing's in bad shape, that's one thing. But if we've just got some spots that need to be fixed,
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. To be completely honest, I'm a little nervous about the vision of that building and moving forward. So maybe
The old
we can
Band-Aid approach?
ascertain. Yeah, we may be in a position where we need to fix what needs to be fixed and maybe just kind of see how that works.
Rhonda's office
Oh, God.
and her storage in the basement and the judge's chambers. That's the biggest part, right?
Yep.
Or do you know, Justin?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Rhonda's office is.
You know, the problem with that being a court of record with her, so,
No.
I don't really know how to say what I'm trying to say. I just, maybe we need to try to see where,
Jerry already said it.
yeah.
It's a
I've
bigger
said it
discussion.
before, in previous years, I believe it's a ticking time bomb up there.
It has been ever since I've been around that courthouse.
you told me to keep my mouth for 2 years, we might not be able to.
It says it's to replace the existing roof except dispatch.
Okay,
So that's a whole shooting match, yeah.
yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's everything. I'm no means a roofer or construction man, but I'd be curious to know if we cut and just fix what damage and compare the cost and see what happens from there.
From what Mark said, it really needs replacement. Let me forward this email to you, Justin, so you can be looking at what we're looking at.
Sure.
So all of it to dispatch.
What does he mean by exclusion and rotten decking? You're not gonna put something over rotten decking, are you?
Basically, no, the number above doesn't include if you have to replace
The
rotted
decking,
decking.
gotcha, okay.
And it doesn't include asbestos testing and abatement.
It shouldn't be asbestos, because they replaced the roof, what, 20 years ago, so?
Don't get any form of insurance would help us in this, would it?
No, because this is normal wear and tear. It wasn't because of
Hey, how do you know? Is there any hail damage on that roof?
There was a heavy downpour.
I need hail, we need hail.
Well, there was hailstorms since I got here.
Yeah, I know.
Walk home in it, I walk back here in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, people all over this county are getting new roofs
I'm
due to hail
certainly willing
damage.
to ask, but I wouldn't expect it, but I'm willing to ask the question.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Go ahead.
What was that? What was you saying, Cindy?
I said, I don't think insurance will help us, but I'm willing to ask them if they would.
Yeah.
Year 2 layer.
But I think when they find out the age of the roof, the answer will be no.
Yeah, right. Comes all the way from Covington, huh? No. Yeah, Covington, wow.
It'd be worth revisiting our insurance office.
I think, roofs, it's always nice to get them done when it's warm.
Yep.
And, so,
Yep.
And Mr. Gooder, you were out when we did it, but to make it now equal zero with the changes we made is 45,000 going into budget stabilization.
fortunately, some of this might, we should be able to recoup some of this next year with not having to do another, hopefully not doing another roof, but it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Of course, 118,000 of that came out of the courthouse
Right.
maintenance, so it's
Right,
only
yeah.
50,000. Yeah.
So we're,
So we have to, so this proposal is, if not accepted, will be withdrawn within 5 days. Was that business days out?
I would imagine.
It didn't
so.
count the holiday? You gotta specify with people, I tell you, I learned that. So we have until maybe get them, so Friday the 4th.
is there a reason we wouldn't accept it?
No?
Cindy, do you feel like this was really a
I don't feel,
full quotation
I don't
or
feel like
kind
it
of
was
this is,
I don't feel like it's a full quotation. I
because
think
they
it,
weren't.
Yeah, because
right.
they haven't been there and actually
Exactly.
seen.
Yeah.
We were saying we need something for budget, our meetings to Wednesday.
Gotcha. So this thing is just a little thing that he probably puts
Yes,
under his signature.
yeah.
Well,
Because we haven't done it.
yeah. Right.
So I think this is just so you know about how much the current price would be.
Yeah, we have not had.
I think the sooner the better. On this for sure.
Well, for a budgeted number, I guess it's okay, but we need
Maybe
to get
more.
them, we need to get them up here and actually do a physical inspection.
Don't whoever gets the bid.
Hopefully several.
You'll need to-
Yeah, whoever gets the bid.
And, you know, Yeah, I guess we need to start moving towards a bid.
Budget's approved, I guess.
Budget approved, and then we can maybe even see if we can do a bid that would include adding the trusses or not adding the trusses.
You know, that it's.
The only thing with the courthouse with the chiller being up there, that may not be an option.
Yeah.
Well,
Or you might be able to put trusses on it and then put another office, that office.
We'll give you the penthouse suite, Justin.
yeah, or another long room that might be needed.
It's designed for another floor.
Actually, Mr. Booth had mentioned that the other day, and I mentioned it to Mr. Bolton. He said that really is something to consider.
We just need to pull
Put a
out,
jury room up there.
Uh-huh.
or in the courtroom, or whatever. But we need to pull the plans and have somebody look at it and re-verify the foundation and everything before we get to it. But that might be a cheaper option than,
I'm thinking when they remodeled it, they said it was designed for another floor.
Oh,
Okay. So I'm gonna try to move you all along if you would
of course,
like.
when we do that, then we'll need a
that
ladder.
adjourned.
We'll need a ladder truck. That'll be the next thing. I'm just telling you, A leads to B and C, you know that.
Yes.
So are you guys good with where we are on the budget?
Yeah, we broke it again.
You're broke again.
Yeah, we was in the plus now.
We're still in the plus, we got 45,000.
Well, I did have one question posed to me that I said I would bring up, and the reason it came up, it was on the purchase of another ambulance this year, in this upcoming budget. Do we really need to do that if we don't have a place to put the ambulances we've already bought, and you've got one sitting outside that's been sitting outside since it was purchased?
I mean, was this a request from rescue, or was it a request from EMS?
I'm talking from a citizen
Oh,
that
okay.
made the complaint that the Golden Blackland has been
Concern.
sitting outside ever since it was
I would
purchased.
really love to see that thing up underneath the building here.
Yes.
I've got the same comments. about
Well,
that.
and it was posed to me as, should we be buying another one if we don't have room for the others? And I couldn't really, I hadn't paid attention.
We don't have one in the budget for this year.
Well, I know, but we will be,
We've got another one coming.
we got another one
That we
coming
already
Paid for.
that we've already paid for, and the question was, why are we bringing another one we paid for, you know? And I guess my question is, if we're bringing these in to replace, why are we not moving the replacements outside and put the new ones inside?
Great.
And is this ambulance ready to go? Is it usable? It may not be.
As far as I
Okay.
know.
Yes, I think it's the
Then why are we not, I'm just passing on questions. I couldn't
I
answer
think it
that
might be
question.
outside to kind of show it off for a little while.
Well, it's been showed off, but it's not getting the results they want.
Okay, fair enough.
I think
You know, I've got calls about it.
if there's not room there, then we need to bring it up here and put it under,
Yeah.
Or put one of the ones that it's gonna replace
up here.
Yeah.
Because if it's ready to go and it's replacing, then it should already be in service
Yep.
and want to replace it.
I think that's-
It may just be they're trying to
Did you get the place?
Hold off.
Yeah.
get a certain amount of mileage out of,
One of them.
Well, I understand, but to put the old one outside and the new one
or
inside.
park when you're not running up here.
Yeah, something.
I have had multiple people tell me, it's a shame that y'all buy new equipment and let it sit outside.
Well, see, I didn't even realize it till it was brought up to me. And I traveled down through there a lot, but I just didn't,
You're watching the road.
We'll ask them about that.
I would say, I would agree with you. Whichever ones are not running, if there's room to put under a building, that would probably be,
They can bring the one up here if they want
it's
to.
a couple $100,000 unit, there's no reason to let it sit out, so.
Yeah.
Weather, and we got weather coming too.
Yeah. The other thing related, not necessarily ambulance, that's a discussion I think, you all need to have, but, we are starting to move towards looking at what all the stuff is we have sitting around and getting ready to sell some of the stuff
Yeah,
that's
we
sitting
need to
around.
have an auction.
Yeah,
We're we can do that online, that there's a particular site that's
Yeah,
what
the
they do.
yeah, that's what,
Yeah,
Brian does that.
yeah, and it's been, well, some of them are his, so I've already got Kevin chatting with him about going ahead and moving and getting that stuff out sooner rather than later, purchased.
Now's a good time to do it, cause scrap metal's going up. So,
Yeah, and apparently this particular site, I forget, Go Deals, Go
Yeah.
something, yeah, we tends to do pretty well because of the reach, so.
So some of these units we're about to replace, then now's the time to get them on that list as well.
Yeah, well, and especially, we've got a ton of stuff sitting down by the transfer station.
Good boy.
yes.
So,
Clean out.
Up here too. Yeah, there you go, Kirsten.
yeah.
Spring clean. Still got a couple of weeks.
We skipped a few springs along the way.
I also had another question. Can we go back up to the waste part of this? Where the positions added? Now, is that gonna be a driver or a person working at the tipping station, or do you know what?
Or do we need it?
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay.
And Sue, do we need,
Because I've had some concerns that they've gone in, this is during the day, not the overtime or anything. Can't find anybody at the tipping floor, can't find anybody at recycling, equipment sitting there running and nobody around.
Yeah, if equipment's running, there needs to be something.
Yeah.
That's just,
Well, you don't know, they could've went to the bathroom, they just
I'm
didn't see
saying,
you.
take key with you.
Yeah.
I pulled in a few times, there'd be a piece of equipment sitting there running and no one in sight, and I'm like,
We've got this,
good joy running here.
it's a
as an
recipe for
equipment
disaster
operator.
there.
Say what?
We have it as a step 5 on the equipment operator, scale.
Right.
Okay. Well, we just need, I guess, and I understand at night they're doing one person, and that's fine, but, during the normal business time, there ought to be more than one person there. That way, there ought to be one person in each place, in my opinion, but
What are your thoughts?
Not that concern a little bit up there, is just not having equipment running where somebody can just jump in it. Either a trash truck sitting there running with no one around, or
skid steer or a backhoe or something.
because it could not even be an
Well,
adult, it could be a kid got out of the car and run over, whatever,
there's equipment, there's machinery in that recycling that people don't need to be messing with either.
Right. Well, I told you the last 3 times, I've not had anybody there when I've dropped my
hopefully this
recycling.
will solve some of that.
Maybe. How do you feel about it? And you're looking at things with fresh eyes.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
Fresh eyes, what do you think, Linda?
Well, Cindy pulled how much comp time and leave and everything that everybody has, so it kind of, they're really, the challenge is that we are in some ways overstaffed if everybody was there all the time. So it's a really similar problem to EMS in that, we really do have, if everybody was working what would be kind of a normal schedule, right, then you would have enough people. The problem is you have folks earning, almost everybody out there now is, and a lot of people with EMS, but in both cases you have people earning as much as 16 hours of annual, 16 hours of sick, and then comp time at time and a half. And so they stack up a lot of time, and then when those folks start to take that time, it creates a hole, and so you have to overstaff to make sure you have the staff that you need. And so it was that, yes.
At the end of the calendar year, we have so many people with so much leave that if they don't use it before December 31st, they lose it. So you have people taking off almost the entire month.
So what
And
is the answer? It seems, yeah, go ahead.
Just a problem, we don't have.
Well,
I do have an answer.
Maybe that's part of what we need to discuss when we get into the waste discussion there in July.
Well, I just don't think it's waste, is what I'm hearing.
I think our leave policy is very, very generous.
Well, is this not a staffing issue? I mean, you say in some instances we're overstaffed. I mean, is it a scheduling situation?
No,
I mean,
it's-
my question is how do
It's,
people get to the point of earning
it's the
that
comp
much
time.
cost?
They're earning the comp time because somebody has to do the job when somebody's taking a month off work. So you've got,
I get that, but how did we get there to begin with?
Because we're very generous.
because we're having people earn 2 days of annual leave and 2 days of sick leave every month. So they're earning 4 days off every month.
4 days out of 20.
But sick leave is not an extra day off.
Well, I know, but not
So you
everybody.
only require a doctor's note after 3 days.
The county doesn't.
Right.
Correct.
So a lot of people lose sick leave, but a lot of other people use their sick leave.
Right, and remember your sick leave, as you all know, you can get paid out for a portion of your sick leave as well. So Cindy and I have had numerous internal conversations about this. And I also on Friday, and I've talked to Steve about it a little bit because I think it is related to our personnel policies. And on Friday, I also talked to Stephanie Davis, I believe it is, at Virginia Tech, who is over the local government certification and MPA program. And so she offered to help us look at our personnel policies a little bit
Good.
and maybe help us work through some of this and how we compare to other folks. I know we don't love to be compared, but for this purpose, it might be useful to kind of see what other folks do and that kind of thing and go from there.
That's the same process we went through when we adjusted the salaries. We had to study, had to compare it.
Even without sick leave, we're giving a month off a year just to leave.
Correct. It's crazy.
After 6 years? No, after 10 years.
10 years.
After 5 years, you go from 8 hours of each a month to 10 hours of each, and after, is it 10 or 15 years, you go up to 16 hours.
These
A lot,
people
but
did
we
it
have a
'cause
lot
they've
of
been there so
people.
long.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who've been there
And
so
I
long.
believe in rewarding longevity,
Exactly.
but we still have to operate a business.
Well, and then on the other hand, these are some of the same people that don't get paid very well.
Right.
So that's part
So
of
part of the-
perpetuating the problem.
Honestly, I've thought about, obviously after I leave the board, but just on the EMS side, it would be perfect to run, 12 or 24 hour, I say 12-hour night shift and then go farm another day. So, I mean, it works with the schedule of some of these folks.
So you'd be a flex time.
A lot of places don't even have sick and annual, they have what they call PTO,
Correct.
paid time off.
Some of the major corporations
That
in the
may
River
actually-
Valley do.
Because I'm just sitting there thinking, you get a group of 40, 50 people, whatever. I mean, some people are gonna come to work no matter what, and some people are gonna take a sick day if they just
Absolutely.
allergies, you know, so
Well, and then
how's that fair?
the other thing that I will add is it also creates, from a management perspective, staff pressure on the folks like, well, the two that are sitting here, honestly, and several other people, that they all end up they all work kind of the hours you expect folks to and more, to help fill the gap of stuff that doesn't get done. And it's particularly problematic though when it comes to especially EMS, because if Cindy's not in for a day, then her stuff sits there and she deals with it when she comes back. I don't pay somebody to come be Cindy for a day.
Yeah.
Right.
But in EMS, if somebody leaves and takes their day, I have to pay their leave, which they have earned, but now I have to pay somebody else
To take that
to take
spot.
that slot and potentially at time and a half.
Right.
So that's and that starts to build into some of your budget
Yeah.
challenges. So it's a much
And it's-
bigger
Right.
kind of issue.
Yeah.
And as I understand, this would be under your purview as the administrator, this is your staffing,
Mhm.
and you work with your budget, and obviously you don't, I mean, you're obviously talking with the folks that you work with. You know, keeping us informed is important, but
Well, one thing Dr. Millsaps and I talked about is since you approved the personnel policy,
right.
she's going to
Mhm.
work on making some recommendations
Mhm.
to change that personnel policy.
Gotcha.
Which you'll have the opportunity to approve.
Well, and just to be clear too, I mean, I recognize if we make some of the changes this discussion kind of suggests might be coming forward for you all to consider. You know, again, I recognize these are also a lot of the same folks that get paid
Sure.
not very well. And so maybe we need to think about making a trade there, you know, pay you better to be here 40 hours.
Right.
As an example, so it's not to try to use this as a big cost savings, but it creates the more stability and this is scheduling. I mean, I showed you all the last meeting, the number of shifts at EMS that are open even after bringing in part-time folks. It's pretty astonishing. But probably not fixable in the budget document, but just to let you all know that's that's kind of what we're doing, and so that's why I talked to Stephanie about it, to get some perspective from other folks.
Mr. Booth opened up this rabbit trap.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
I made it a little wider.
I told the citizen, we kind of went over my broad, but I told them I would bring the subject up in discussion with the budgets and stuff. That
It was a good question. It was a good discussion.
back to the original, in the future, as we're purchasing equipment, we need to make sure we have a place to put it and start moving out.
I was talking about when you asked about why nobody was at the transfer
well,
station.
yeah.
We have an adequate staffing.
Yeah, well, I said I would bring that up too.
Yep.
That's what
Well,
I'm
that's
here
fair.
for.
That's fair. Well, we will, Kevin is the one who is fortunate enough to get to sell our stuff, so look forward to all of this task with trying to create some
There's
space.
one piece of equipment I would like to get my hands on, so I'll be watching for that.
So at the June 8th meeting, should we bring the budget back for approval at that meeting?
I'm ready, I'll get it good.
Yeah.
And I know that you always, I know Dr. Millsaps sent you an email about what you wanted in a,
Yes. So, yes, if you all could send me, we would, I know Terry used to do kind of a highlights compilation anyway, but if there are particular things about this budget that you find especially important that we make sure we communicate to the public, that you're particularly proud of or think is just really important to know, if you would drop me a note or give me a call or leave me a voicemail, whatever, and I'll try my best to make sure that that's included in that. We'll I even try to do kind of a nice little infographic to get done. So I've discovered Canva, and it's great fun.
Majority of the citizens, they thought that we were making the right move and upgrading the 911 equipment and adding the towers. They wasn't particularly happy it cost much, but they understood how much, I'm not happy with the cost of it either, but they understood and they really,
I actually got better feedback on this one than the school project last year.
yeah.
Okay.
But it may be just partially, but
I have that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, sometimes it's just hard to, without a lot of information, it's hard to argue against
Right.
first responders. And so, it's.
Now, I did receive several comments concerning that gas tank at the high school. And not being secured, but the engineers are far more educated than this whole country was.
We brought it up.
We run the
Several
flagpole,
times.
bent the flagpole over and straightened it back up, so.
It's not for lack of trying.
Nope. Okay. You know how I've done it.
If you get into it, you will hear a lot of comments about that. And the big hole in the ground in front of it.
That whole project, so the high school project, as of late last week, is about 3 weeks behind, but they are of the opinion that they are hopeful that they can catch up. A lot of that was due to weather. And that they've actually done pretty well with making sure they have all the supplies that they need, so that's worked pretty well.
A lot of the things they've run into, I'm surprised they're not, I mean, the DDOT drainage and some other stuff, it could have been far worse, so.
It could have been far worse. So far, and they are still feeling pretty confident that they're going to come in at budget. They've been able to use some contingencies. Our architect has pushed back several expenses and said, these are yours. And we're still working through some of the stuff. Dr. Mueller has been really helpful in working through some of the things on the HVAC boiler project. So I'm supposed to call him as soon as we finish meeting this morning and get kind of finally where we are on that. But they've been really helpful, and they've been trying to kind of shift some funds around as they are allowed to better utilize some of the new CARES money that they get to help cover something.
I have some questions about some of that after the meeting.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, have we wrapped up the budget portion of the meeting for today?
I feel like we beat
I'm closing the barn door now.
it.
All right, so our plan forward, if I might, is that you all would take a formal vote then on the 8th on the budget. And then we'll put that on the agenda. So if you got any more questions or anything, that's quick. Mr. Chair, the next item I have on here, if you'd like me to move forward, is the tourism agreement. So you have in your packet two things that are stapled together and that I also sent to you all. So the first, which is, I guess at this point, they're both pretty pressing, but I will tell you that this has been a really enjoyable project for me. Pat and I got to spend a lot of, Pat and I and Kayla and Pat and I and Kayla and I got to spend a lot of time together. And in fact, this last week, Pat and I went to the Blue Ridge Parkway Association meeting, and that was really, really exciting and interesting. And just as a side note, I will say you all got tremendous kudos from that group. Pat did a very nice presentation about Shop Floyd VA, and she was one of the two presenters that were local. And everyone was very impressed about the program and the results that came out of that program. But one of the questions was, where did you get the money to do this? And when she told the group that you all had used your CARES money to the tune of $170,000 to help with that, everyone applauded. It was the first applause of the meeting. It was the next to last presentation. So they were very, very pleased and impressed with you all's commitment to tourism, and enjoyed it that both Pat and I were there as well.
And our businesses.
And our
More
businesses,
importantly,
right.
not just the fact, because,
Yeah,
and was the presentation, as I understand, was it how communities responded to the COVID crisis, correct? Isn't that what?
mm-hmm.
Right, so.
Yes, and so they really were, yes, how the communities responded, thank you, to the COVID crisis. And so it was Pat, and then also with Phil, dinner presentation. And so they were
Well, that's
well
just,
received. Excellent. So in hopes of continuing this success, you have before you two documents. The one in the front is the draft posting. And this kind of started with Kayla and Pat and myself meeting. And we started with the old posting, but really tried to go through and had a long-ranging conversation about what this person's role and skill set and personality type needed to be. And so then it says with corrections, because Kayla was kind enough to send me a couple of small changes. It was things like changing tourism director to director of tourism consistently, things like that.
Right.
So that's why they're not highlighted. But hopefully this is okay with you all. We really wanted to emphasize, we would anyway, but particularly because the tourism director position is open in 2 of our surrounding counties, that we really wanted to do our best to sell ourselves about why this is unique and why this is where you want to be as opposed to somewhere else, and what a great opportunity and what a great community it is. So some of the phrases in here that you wouldn't frequently see in a posting, and I don't think I've ever used before in a posting. I use the term nurture, what is wonderful and unique about Floyd. I actually remember you all saying that in my interview candidly, so I thought that was a good way to bring home what you all had asked of me. And then there's another note in here about communication that is clear and kind.
Yeah, I do too.
So it's,
this is not your average posting for a job, and I kind of like that.
We wanted to make sure we recognize that our businesses in the community that do tourism, they are super great folks and they just add so much dynamic to the community, but not all of them have a great deal of business experience. And so that's where just saying, you should know better kind of thing wouldn't be helpful. So that's why it's in here. So we wanted to get this to everybody as soon as possible. You know, those of you that were at participated in the tourism development meeting, of course, time is kind of the essence. I think Pat says she plans to stay through the end of July full time, and then potentially be available some after that. But of course, you know, it is the 1st of June, so we're kind of running out of time. So I shared this with Pat and Kayla, and I think Kayla's going to share it. Of course, the town has their meeting Thursday, so she's going to share that with them as well. But if you all are okay with this, then whoever, if we can start moving forward with posting, we'll probably just post everywhere we can. So I don't know if there's any questions about that.
You're going to do Indeed?
Yes, we will definitely do Indeed. I will definitely do Indeed.
There's nothing about, salary based on experience or, I mean, there's not even a line referencing that. I just wondered if that was on purpose.
Yeah, it kind of is on purpose, and kind of, at least my thought, and this, we did not discuss this, so this was just my thought in this, is as we start to get folks' applications, I'm hopeful by that time we will have an agreement and a budget. And so when we call people to do kind of preliminary screening interviews, we can say, this is what the range we're looking at, is this okay with you? And go from there. But I understand the concern. I've read several articles in the last 2 weeks about the debate about should you just go ahead and put the salary in up front or not. But I haven't seen a budget yet that I've signed off on to feel comfortable if I'm going to advertise.
And there's 50-50 on that, because I agree with you, but sometimes there's a line.
Yeah.
That just says, hey, we're not just advertising this because we don't want it.
Yeah, we can add something about,
I don't know.
I think it's pretty much assumed that.
I guess it is assumed, but.
If someone's interested, they're going to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, we put something in though for the, when we advertise, we do put something in. I mean, I don't know, it's.
Oh, by the way, you get paid.
Yeah, about wanting payday.
Right, right. But to the other side of being those articles, I mean, I don't want to bring people a long
Yes, bring them
ways down the
along, right.
path
Yeah.
and say, oh, you were expecting $220,000? That's not gonna happen.
Can't quite get that.
If
That's
you stay here enough years, you'll get there.
with your comp time.
So with that, in addition of a general sentence like this, are you all okay with us?
Yeah, I think it's great. I love the post. I really do. Now on to the meat and potatoes.
The meat and potatoes question. So this is the last version with Steve's suggested changes. And we did have some discussion about this.
So what is
And,
these changes?
they were, his are in red.
Okay.
Yes, I should have been more clear about this. So, as we walk through this, for instance, under fiscal agency, that indicates that there was, where it says county/town, there was back and forth on this comments with Steve and I about him asking, are we still in the process of deciding that? And my answer was yes.
Right.
So that's what's missing there when it's got the weird thing. Disperse to the fiscal agent, was just clarifying. He did have comments about on 5, the tourism development council, just to clarify, so this is not really, we just picked up this language from the old agreement because we really weren't doing a deep dive into the TDC. We feel like there should be a separate document, but just pick that up for now. And so when I explained that to him, the only comment he made then was to clarify, before it said Chamber of Commerce, that we should say the Floyd County Chamber of Commerce, to be clear.
Got it.
I think there has been some discussion at the town level about, is this exactly the structure we want, what their roles should be, and those kind of things. But again, we've kind of pushed that to that. My preference would be that be a separate document, or this will take a long time.
Yeah.
And of course, the local tourism industry on 6, just to clarify. On 7, the blue I added earlier, and I should have just taken that off, but that was from Mr. Coleman rightfully pointing out we should make sure that it is clear that that includes the cost of employee benefits. It's coming out of the central budget. Of course, the language changes on A. I did get a question about, is there a conflict between us saying we commit, us and the town saying we commit $40,000, but then saying later that this is not creating a debt. So because as you note in 9, it says that this is not towards the end, this does not create a debt to either party. And so and that was language, that's 19. That was language that Steve added for us. And when I went back and quizzed him about it, he reminded me that one of the unique features of Virginia local government is that a Virginia local government cannot incur a debt without the vote of the people. So we would actually be creating a moral and public commitment, but it is not a legal debt that we could go to court if the town didn't put their $40,000 in and get relief for the $40,000.
We would just have to terminate the agreement.
Right.
If
We would,
one
yeah.
party didn't put it in, the whole.
Correct, right. But we couldn't sue them, or they couldn't sue us for not paying.
Which is probably.
Yeah, that is good.
Yes. Ownership of property and insurance.
Hey, hold on a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So on D, so did D and E, so D became part of C. I'm on 7. 7C, D is, huh? Oh, yeah, 8, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's.
Yes, so, yes.
Yeah, so
I
C
apologize.
becomes D,
Mhm.
or D becomes part of C, and then E is now
There's no E.
Nothing.
Yeah, so basically what really happened there is, originally this was drafted with us still putting in a percentage.
Right?
And so that, because there was a percentage, then we picked up this true-up language that said at the end of the year, we're gonna true everything up. Now that it's a flat fee of $40,000 each, there's no need for that process that was outlined at the very end of 8.
Got it.
Yes, so that's why it's removed.
So will each year during the annual budget process for the county and town, each locality shall estimate the revenues, or are we taking that out too?
Yes, so it's just, the way this is it's just
It ends at-
$40,000.
Right, so C ends at open records laws. And that's the end of C. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
correct.
Yeah, because essentially what that's saying is just that the good faith of both boards are going to try to budget that amount.
Correct.
There may be a time, if both of us are in the bond, that we may agree to put in less. So we're just pledging our good faith to try to do that.
Correct.
Okay, and then other changes, and I do have some updates since I spoke to you on Friday.
Well, if you go back to A, the town and county shall contribute at least $40,000. We're committing $40,000 at minimum for each year.
We're committing that, but also we can't commit that next year.
Well, I know, one board can, I know, but I'm saying for this.
Essentially what we're clarifying, A, with language further down, that it's a good faith, our good faith is what we're committing, but that next year, a new board may go a different direction, or the town council. There's 3 up on town council.
Yeah.
And at that point, we would just terminate if the other body didn't agree.
Okay, then we get to 10, which is a little sticky. So I think that the town manager were not aware that, it is my understanding from both our staff and our attorney, that the logo is actually owned by the county and the EPA. So,
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
so
You
the
were-
logo, the new Floyd logo
Right.
is not actually, it's owned here as opposed to anywhere else. I'm not sure everybody
Went through that
realized that.
process, right?
I think there are some people who are not aware of that. Hello. So there was, when this language was added about the intangible property and all that, that's related to the logo. And so that led to a conversation about, is the logo shared or not shared? And so that's something we'll go back to about my suggestion going forward, but just so you know, I think that was news to everyone.
I mean, they don't remember, it wasn't but a year or 2 ago that we went through the process.
Yeah. So is this saying that whoever the fiscal agent becomes will hold the title to that said logo?
So
Or is that?
so my suggestion, there's a list of about 6 other things that Kayla sent me late yesterday after I went by and chatted with her. And so my suggestion, and I checked with Kayla this morning as well to see if she was good with this. If she was I think we've got a couple of those handful of those kind of items that if we could maybe impose upon 2 of you all of your choosing to sit here and 2 folks from the town elected to just have one joint conversation about a couple of these things. And because we're down to stuff that the staff feels like we can kind of live with, but really these are now down to more policy choices. So that's kind of the suggestion, but I don't know if we needed Ladina to give more background on the logo.
Well, the logo, it's really simple. The EDA, I mean,
I mean, the logo is used, yeah, the logo is used by everybody in the county.
Yeah, we got, sure this is on. We got the funding through the EDA, as you all know.
Right.
The effort was a tag team between the tourism office and the county and the EDA. And when it came time to trademark it, we needed an entity to be the holder of that trademark. So rather than it being just the EDA, because then the tourism office might feel they might not have access, or it being the tourism office because we use it for other economic development.
Right.
I felt like the county would be the right holder of that to be able to, share it with both parties. So it was just a practical thing of it needing to be owned by somebody.
But the town was never part of the
The town was.
The town itself
I mean,
wasn't. I mean, they were part of the discussion, I think.
They were
but
part of the
part
discussion.
of the money.
Exactly.
Yeah, and tourism didn't put any funds in.
They brought money to the
They did.
table from other funders for the
Right.
But
tourism.
it wasn't from the tourism
Right, it wasn't
agreement
from
money from
local.
town to county.
No, it was
Okay,
grants.
yeah.
Correct.
It was in good faith.
No, I mean, there's no way that I would want to take the logo away from tourism. I just,
No.
for clarity,
Yeah, so those are some, and I think that was really just people didn't realize or didn't remember or whatever, so that's kind of one of the things that it feels like it might be good to, something that, again, maybe two of you all, two of them, and not necessarily get Kayla and I in the middle quite, I think Kayla and I are ready to not quite be so much in the middle for,
oh, we can hug it out.
Well, just because I think the things we're down to now are pretty much policy decisions, and we can kind of live with where we all end up.
Now, are these policy decisions what will ultimately determine who holds the tourism department as the fiscal agent? Is that correct?
I think that would be part of the discussion. That would be our recommendation. I think I'll just speak for myself. I feel myself in a growing uncomfortable situation of having to try to represent everyone's views, and which is not necessarily unanimous or maybe similar but not identical.
Sometime before the last Wednesday of the month.
Well,
So quick.
It has
That's
to
what I'm
happen.
saying, that's what I'm saying.
No, it has
So
to happen
kind of
quick.
our suggestion would be, and we can continue going through this document, but we were going back and forth, and again, it was just this morning, was that if you all could come up with two folks today, or at least let me know before Thursday, what you all decide for two people, then when they meet on Thursday, Kayla will present the same thing, and then, our hope had been, I'm hopeful that you all could do this pretty quickly. And then be able to come back, and on our original schedule that we talked about at CDC was June 8th.
Yeah.
To be able to approve it. So once the four of you met and said, we pick A, we pick Z, we pick whatever, then we fix the document and send something back to both bodies. Hopefully.
It'd just be the responsibility of the two that met from each body to make sure that they at least have a majority of people that would support their position. Like if I was appointed to that, for example.
I would want to know.
I would want to make sure, I mean, it would be my responsibility then to make sure that at least two other board members were in agreement with me so that we could get it passed. Otherwise, it's
Absolutely.
me.
But I would feel like it was important for all five of us to
Right.
know absolutely what it is we're looking at.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's not saying.
You wanna make
No,
sure
no,
it
no, I know
passes.
that, I know.
I'm saying make sure all five of
Yes.
us had a say,
Right.
and we would need to list out, make sure all five of us have a complete list of the contingents, whatever's.
I'm just saying, you wouldn't want someone to go into
Two
a
of us.
meeting and
Say, oh, yeah.
select their preferences
And
that
then-
would be against the majority of the.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, all five of us need to
Well,
see
and
that
they're in the
list.
same boat.
Yeah, they're
Right,
the same way, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but all five of us
You
have
kinda
to
fail.
So, and
look at that
Kayla,
list.
I'm sorry, and Kayla and I can certainly pretty quickly put together a list of here's the
What
five
we'll need.
things we
Yeah.
need you to pick,
And say,
pick A or B.
whoever's picked could get it done for our 8th meeting,
Right,
but their next meeting after is not till the 17th
17th.
unless they have a special meeting. And that's just,
That's too close.
well,
Well, you're not gonna get anybody hired.
And so
You need to
you-
get somebody hired so that there's not a gap.
yeah, and then if they have something, they bring out contingency that has to come back to us unless we have a special meeting. Our next meeting's not until what, the
22nd.
whatever the, 22nd?
So, is this gonna get advertised prior to an agreement? Or are we waiting on an agreement? That's another question I have. Because if that's the case,
I wouldn't advertise for a week.
No. To give this
I mean,
group a chance to get together and at least,
make sure we're gonna do.
yeah,
That's up, I mean,
yeah, we
I
gotta
don't
see if
think
we've
so,
got,
but I mean, you don't wanna advertise them. You could advertise them and say sorry.
well, if one side holds out or the other side holds out, then we're down to where everything's just gone. Unless one to the other side picks it up and runs with it.
Well, somebody,
I'm
And
hoping.
I don't wanna see that happen.
yeah, I don't either. I don't think they do
I don't think so either. I think, my belief is, and I can obviously can't speak for y'all, that both bodies think it's really important to continue this effort and do it well. And there's just a couple of items that remain that you all, as the elected folks, kind of need to make the final call about. What if you all, I don't know, I'm not now kind of pushing y'all, but so they meet on Thursday, the 3rd, tomorrow. So if they are agreeable to this plan, then maybe if we could hear back a sense of the body by the 9th or 10th. No, we couldn't hear it by the
So that'll
7th.
be after
By
our
the
meeting.
7th, by the 7th.
Yeah, whoever's appointed is going to have to either meet
Friday,
Friday,
Saturday,
Saturday, Sunday, or
Monday.
Yep.
And it's going to have to be one of those meetings where they can iron things out.
Yep,
it. I would say probably over the weekend or Monday, because y'all are gonna have to develop a check sheet or whatever, and then the two people that are appointed are gonna have to talk to.
yep,
If I was appointed, I'd wanna call each other member and go through that.
that's right.
And we need time to read it
Yeah.
and get our opinions.
Correct.
So I would say it'd be the weekend. kind of.
Yep.
They have to have a meeting over the weekend, yeah.
I'm thinking by the time it's all said and done for both parties, it probably will end up being Sunday afternoon. That's what I'm thinking.
Monday morning would work. But anyway.
Yeah.
Monday morning at Blue Ridge Cafe.
We can just talk it out.
Yep.
We can
Not
give
that
you a
food
list.
would be involved, no.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Coleman, did you have something to add there?
No, I mean, I just feel like I guess I'm just stuck on the fact that, we're pledging $40,000 to this, and as we should, but the one thing that we can't see, or the thing we keep dancing around is who's gonna hold the title of this position. But, I mean, we're trusting our money, we need to figure out who we're gonna trust to hold the title of this position, so, to me, I don't know how much longer we're gonna keep that around. And as far as two members, definitely think it should personally be those who are probably more directly affected among the five of us, which is, I guess, probably be, my opinion, would be Jerry and Linda, just to start the conversation moving that way. Just getting right to the point.
There you go. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
So why would those two be more effective? I'm not following you.
But I just feel like being right in town, those districts are right there, it's where this thing's found. I mean, I don't feel like I have a place in it as much as, anybody else where the core of the businesses and the things be attractive and things that would be more associated would be. I feel like they're there in the community on a regular basis would have probably as good as an ear on the ground as anybody.
I mean, I would disagree with that, because I would say that part of my push for doing this is that we need more representation in the far-flung parts of our community than just the town. I mean, I went into this thinking it should be the chair and vice chair with me. That's usually how we do it.
That's fine too, just trying to get the conversation going. We
Yeah, I mean,
dance around a lot here.
yeah, I can understand what you're saying. I just, usually when, I mean, in the past when we've met with school or different people, it was always the chair and vice chair would do it.
I was able to that.
Lord, I'm happy whatever combination, because I think all of us are in this together. If you want to be me and Joe, I don't have a problem, or if you want to be you and Joe, or, you know, I'm okay. I do agree with you, and will stress, want to hear from every board member once they
Right.
get this list.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
I'm probably gonna have to delegate this one,
Well, that's up to you.
because I'll tell you later what's going on.
That's fine, I'm just saying, I don't, I didn't want to say it should be somebody else, because generally speaking, as chair, but I don't care who does it, I just, that's how we usually.
I'm willing to do it if that's the wishes of the board.
Are you wanting to do it?
Not necessarily, just because I've got so much going on, it's gonna be hard for me to. So it may be best for y'all to, I just,
It needs to be open.
it needs, I mean, whoever it is needs to talk to everybody, but it's also, I just wanna make sure, I think in all of these cases where you have, some type of negotiation, the chair needs to be involved, if they wanna be involved. I don't think you need to bypass, I mean, there's a reason you elect a chairman to lead.
But there are extenuating.
No, I understand that, I'm not saying it has to be, I'm just saying that's where you start at.
Right. But I'm willing.
I am too, if that's the wishes of the board, yes.
So
Do
we're
you need
gonna-
action on that appointment, or?
I don't think so. I'll just, if it's by consensus, by consensus, and that it would be Ms. Booth and Ms. Cookenberg, and then,
Y'all get the list to everybody. as soon
yeah,
as you
we'll
can.
get a list of things together. Obviously, where it resides is the key issue.
Right.
But I think it's also important for you all and the town to have an understanding about what does it really mean for someone to be the fiscal agent, and how does that vary from what Kayla and I would do jointly, no matter who is selected.
Right.
So I think that's probably, and maybe that's something I can certainly let you all know and write out what my suggestion.
I think I was, yeah.
Because there's certain things that's gonna happen no matter where the position falls.
Right.
And so those I kinda push out here,
Mhm.
is the impact of, directly where the position's at. But,
Yeah.
well, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
My opinion on that.
So,
And I think there's also a couple other concerns that I think are surfacing through some of the questions from the town. That I'll write them out to just, so you understand. So one of the issues that was raised was, as you see in here, the tourism director is responsible for putting together and presenting the budget. Apparently there's some folks associated with the town that wants to make sure that the tourism director is the person who actually physically comes and presents. And as I told Kayla last night, I certainly understand that's what the town's practice is, that they have everyone come speak in that case. If that's who they want to come speak, that's their choice. But this year, you all have chosen to not have everyone come speak. And so this document, in my opinion, shouldn't govern your process for how you make a budget decision. That's your decision. So it's some of those kind of things that
Yeah,
I
in
just
years
felt like we all
past,
need
we've
to
had
have some
people that
conversations.
wanted to come, and we've allowed that, but overall, most of it takes place in the January meetings that the county administrator and staff have.
so for me, it would appear that the operating team is going to be working with the tourism director. And that operating team is made up of the county administrator and the town manager. And in discussions, as the months go by, you are going to be flushing out this position in new and better ways. And when December rolls around, or late November, all three individuals, in my estimation, are going to be sitting down and talking about a budget. And that this new tourism director will have a lot of say in that budget, definitely, and will be wanting to put something together as part of their position. And they will have the ability to come and ask guidance from the team that's helping to guide them. And ultimately, whoever the fiscal agent is could have, if the tourism director wants to present the budget to the town, that's fine, if that's what the town would like. But I could see where the fiscal agent could submit the budget, like the sheriff submits a budget. That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
What role does the TDC have in this? And coming up with a budget?
In coming up with a budget, I don't think they really have a role in coming up with a budget.
That's probably a good thing in some ways, because
Yeah.
it's been an incredible struggle with the budget.
It is.
Um,
Because this position is now taking on a new,
Right.
it's,
It's evolving into, or morphing.
into
more
a
of a-
department.
More department style than
It's growing up. That's the whole idea. It's
I would just love to see the TDC to be able to focus on
strategic.
strategic stuff and
And
not
that's
have
what-
to do the.
And I think that's what it's doing.
That's what it says here, and that's why I think, to Dr. Millsap's point, it's important for us to look at the TDC after we get this thing ironed out quickly.
One of the things I really would like to see, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, someone needs to approve a budget though. Is that just the fiscal, because just from the standpoint of one group is gonna be the fiscal agent, one's not, so let's say we're the fiscal agent. The town would approve passing their 40,000 along, but they wouldn't really have a say over the actual budget. Would the fiscal agent then approve the budget, or would the TDC need to approve the budget? I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying, somebody needs to actually have approval of the budget.
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the two managers.
And I think this comes to, Justin, if I may ask, when you're not here, I can't really look at you, but isn't this part of what has been your kind of just quandary? Don't mean to put words in your mouth.
What, I'm not following you. Sorry.
Just what we were talking about with this budget and who actually says, yeah, this is the budget and this is how we're gonna spend it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're talking about the leadership, is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, it kind of is end up what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate to have the relationship we do now, and I think, for now, it's great. You got two heads, and I just have a hard time getting that out of my mind, that at some point they're not going to be problematic. That's just the way I work, and I holler at some kind of guys, it's well known, and so if that's what you're referring to, yes, it was, I am kind of concerned about that and how that would play out to include spending.
Well, and if I might, I think where kind of my staff thought about this, and Mr. Coleman and I have, we talked about his concern, and so when I was thinking about this last night and this morning, it feels like to me, maybe part of why I was suggesting this meeting is because I personally am not as concerned about the town manager and myself working something out and being able to sign up, is that we all are answerable to you all as bodies. So I think part of why I would like you all to have some conversation is to feel like everybody's got kind of a common, all the elected folks, or the majority of the elected folks have a common understanding to a general direction. And then Kayla and I and certainly Mr. Coleman, I understand your concern, but I feel like if we feel like we have a direction that's consistent across both organizations, then we can make that happen. I think that the challenge is kind of making sure that the town's view and the county's view of where we're going, at least until we do this new strategic plan where everybody would be engaged. Right? But until then, we're thinking about tourism in the same manner. And I know on occasion in the past, over the 8 years, I'm not sure that's always wide, is what I think.
Well, with that, within that vein, I can understand if you're trying to get, the direction of each board or council. And to Lauren's point, I can understand as we have and continue to do have the chairman and vice chairman representing those directionals of, both of those boards or councils. I can understand that.
I guess my concern in this, in number 9, is just, don't we need to have just really direct language that says, this entity shall approve the budget, rather than, like right now, if you read it, the budget will be presented to the respective governing bodies as part of the budgeting process. Well, does that mean that we'll sit here and say, well, we don't like this, we're gonna change this, and then the town council comes in and says, we're gonna move this money over here, and then
See,
who controls it? I think it needs to say, the TDC will approve, or the fiscal agent will approve, or somebody needs to have the final say on.
well, if you look at,
Because if we're going, it's gonna be a little bit like what we're doing right now with this agreement. They're over there doing their thing, we're over here doing our thing, and trying to make this budget work.
and I don't think, I look at some of the other things under the, I'm not looking at it as a department of either one. This is a community service program, that's where we're at. And we're committed to making, each group's committed to making a $40,000 donation or contribution. And to me, you go back in the agreement, it talks about the managers, which is the county administrator and the town manager. And if they have a conflict, then it goes back and involves the committee. Well, I could tell you what the structure is, say, like for the 4-H contribution we make there. I don't know who makes that decision and approves that budget. We're just approving our contribution. And I understand where you're coming from, but I think it falls on the town manager and county administrator as the administrators.
But then does that budget, from what you said, that the tourism director, if the town thinks they need to come present the budget to them, that would lead me to think that they think they could possibly make changes to it.
Well,
If I might, it could be that, it could also be trying to make sure they don't overwhelm their town staff.
see,
And I don't know what the reason is. So that's why I feel like y'all should talk. We're trying to figure out from a sentence in an email what they need.
I think in their process varies from us, that I think just about every entity comes and makes a presentation. I don't know if, and I can't speak for them, I haven't had the discussion. I don't know if it's from the standpoint of being able to change the budget, other than just along with everybody else make a presentation on it.
I think it needs, whatever we do, it needs to be really clear that who approves the budget and who doesn't. Because otherwise it's going to be.
For my part, I think it should be the manager and the county administrator and.
So what happens if, let's say we get an $80,000 budget plus whatever grants we get.
Right.
And we get that in and we say, the majority of the board looks at it and says, we don't want that. And the majority of the town council says, yeah, that's what we want. And how's that resolved?
Well, then, if there's a conflict between them two, then the tourism committee comes in. That's under part of the thing. It says that, and they're managing. If there's a conflict between the two of them, then the tourism committee comes in as the third party.
I just almost wonder if it shouldn't just have another line that the TDC approves the budget. That way, it's a combo of town and county. It might. I may be overthinking it, but it almost seems to me like that might solve
Well, I understand where you come from, but I also heard you say just a few minutes ago that it's been a nightmare in the past.
Well, what's been hard is I think we've had a budget committee, and we haven't got, I mean, there hasn't been a budget produced. I like the fact that the director of tourism is responsible. It's very similar to what we do things here, where the county administrator is responsible for presenting the budget, you know. And so it's not left up to a couple elected officials that may or may not be, you know, whatever. This is part of the paid personnel job that they come up with the budget.
And it's structured.
And then they present it, but I almost wonder if it shouldn't be somebody, like it's some type of elected officials that have to approve it at that point. But I may be overthinking it.
But I think that's why we have a county administrator and a town manager at that level.
If it was going to be looked at as a department of either one in total, I would agree with you. But, see, right now the agreement is, I don't think either side wants to totally take over the tourism per se.
Yeah.
And trying to reach an agreement to keep this thing going, and it is going in the right direction, or I think so. But I think, well, and maybe it needs to be simply put in there that the county administrator and the town manager has approval of the budget, and if there's a disagreement there, then again, like the other section, then the tourism committee comes in as the deciding vote. I mean, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I think it should be the two of them, but we do the majority here. If you think it ought to be one governing body or the physical agent, I have no problem.
I think the fiscal agent thing is going to cause conflict because then it's one whole body versus the other. And I don't see that working well. But what I don't want to have, what I'm really trying to avoid is that, you know, they show us the budget and we start tinkering with it, and then the town starts tinkering with it.
Well, maybe a simple statement that neither governing body is afforded the, and I'm sure Steve can come up with better language.
I think rather than saying it that way,
Yeah,
that's the negative statement. The positive statement would be you're saying who controls it versus.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
Rather than saying this
maybe,
is what the problem could be, it could be saying this is the solution.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
so what if maybe an option would be, I think, which is maybe where you're going, Mr. Yoder, that we have it so the tourism director with the town manager and myself put together a budget, and we hopefully all agree and sign off and say, okay, the town manager and the county administrator are good with this budget, given the 40,000 commitment and everything.
Because you'll be talking to each of us.
Yeah, and then the TDC could potentially, since it represents both
That's a
groups,
tiebreaker.
could be the budget approver.
Right.
So that's
I
almost
don't
like
know
the
if the
board of
TDC
your
having the
community.
responsibility of developing the budget,
Right.
but I think it wouldn't hurt to just have them have it
Put a
and
seal
say,
on it.
say,
Yeah, sign on it.
by the 1st of July, the TDC will approve the budget. So, I mean, they develop it, it's just.
I'm fine with that if it works with your group.
I think
I hate
it
to
gives,
explain why I'm thinking this, but.
No, don't. I think I know.
I just know how it's worked in the past.
Right.
I just, you know, and on the other hand, then you're giving them the power to dismantle and rearrange the budget too, even though they've presented it.
yeah, I don't want
And it
that
could be
either.
the county and town agree, and this group, the majority of this group say, no.
I would be fine with either two options, I guess. One, where it says everything like this, director of tourism will prepare it, governing bodies will be presented, then you could have the operating team will approve the budget.
That's fine.
Or you could say, well,
I
the
think that's the
TDC,
way,
either way's fine, man. I would like to see someone in there that actually, who has the authority to say, this is the budget.
I think I like the operating team.
Are
That's
you
what I like.
comfortable with that?
I think we
Didn't
can,
I start with that?
we could do either one of, yeah, I think that would be good. And then, maybe on the other question that I raised about the who presents, maybe we just, everyone just clarifies that you would take it up in whatever method the chair deems that year.
Sure.
So it's how everybody, you all chosen to not have anybody present, so that would fit in that category, and since the town's practices, lots of people present, then they could do that, and that's just how it works out, because you all are different entities and come about your
And I
decisions in
think it's
different
more
ways.
about information. For me, it would be more about information than it would per se every minute dollar of the budget. Where you at, what you planning, what you've done, what you've accomplished, more so than I'm spending $10 on a extra copier this week, or,
I would like to see, especially in this first year, no matter where we end up, regular updates from you
Okay.
as how the tourism director is doing and how our new, I think that's important. I think the town manager should do the same to the town council.
Sure.
I think that's
up to
important.
them.
Yeah, it's up to them, but I think that's, since this is all so new,
Yeah.
I think that it's, and I think we have to have, if I may, there's gotta be some faith here that, we're all grounded in that, and I think we have to say to ourselves, we're leaping off into the air, and we want to be able to do this. I know we're trying to iron out, dot all the i's and cross all the t's, but yeah.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Be telling to death.
So who's going to talk for us?
Your suggestion,
Yeah.
London, Jerry. That's all right with you.
I never heard, unless I missed it, that we got decided
Yeah, we got
on that. I wasn't
consensus.
sure.
Jerry said he wasn't able to, and I know I'm just, this time of year for me is way too busy, so.
Okay.
I basically just wanted to make sure Joe had the opportunity to lead on that if he wanted.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that, I'm glad.
No, I didn't mean for you to sound that way either.
No, I mean, not just about that, but anyway, moving along.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about it for 15 minutes?
You can apologize.
My apologies.
No, I was just kidding.
Come over and smack you in the shoulder.
All right. Okay, so we, it feels like you all are good, mostly good with this document we have, and I'm gonna come up with, Kayla and I will come up with a common list of, these are things that we need the four of you to talk through and pick A or B or come up with
Can you get this
consensus.
latest addition into it so they'll have it for their Thursday meeting?
Yes,
And also with your thoughts for us.
okay.
Absolutely. And, as soon as.
As soon as I.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. Put up my shingles, that one more day.
You didn't want that anyway.
All right, we can do that. We
I'll
can do
get you
that.
one of them TARDISes like Doctor Who had.
There you go.
Travel back and forward.
All right, well, if we are finished with that, thank you all, and Ladina is here for your last substantive item, I think. If you, know you all wanted to, and of course, she was gleefully on vacation, although we did hear from her some. We didn't hear from her quite as much as we usually do, which was the goal. So, but I know there were some issues that we felt like you all needed to chat a little.
Gleefully, I like it.
Well, I feel like that there's aspects that we probably need to talk about in closed session if you all are okay with that relate to the normal trio of things. But in open session, I did want to share with you that we have been working for the past year or so on a metalworking marketing campaign, and we're about to launch that hopefully next week.
Excellent.
The new economic development website is up. And so we were trying to get it in place before we launched this. So we've got 3 videos that I didn't bring today, but I will share with you in the near future that showcase a lot of the metalworking happening in Floyd County and talk about our high school programs, talk about some of our businesses that are doing really creative things and good things. So the videos are meant to be a marketing campaign for us, both for businesses in those sectors as well as talent, to let them know about the opportunities here that our businesses are looking for talent. So I just wanted to let you know that we're excited about this. It's been quite a while in the works, and it's I think you all will hopefully will feel good about it too. So, all right. With regards to the other items, Dr. Millsaps, if you're okay with it, I feel like we should have some conversation in closed session and then revisit if there's any open session action that needs to be taken.
Do you know which sections?
You know, it turns out Tabitha just said that to me. Yes.
Do you know how long it'll take?
She needs to take a break.
I don't.
You want to take a break and make your phone call?
No, they're calling me. I gotta get the house, go off there.